Ready?
We can just go.
It's all good.
Okay.
Good morning. I am Ward 4 Councilmember Janeese Lewis George, Chair of the Committee on Facilities. It is 11 a.m. on Thursday, November 20th, 2025, and we are holding this Oversight Roundtable for the Department of Parks and Recreation via a hybrid format. Public witnesses are testifying via Zoom and in person here in room 123 of the John A. Wilson Building, and government witnesses are testifying in person. This hearing is also being broadcast live on my website at janeeseward4.com/live, in addition to DC Cable and the council's website. Here are some brief reminders about the committee's protocols for witnesses participating virtually today. All witnesses participating in this Zoom webinar are currently listed as attendees. When it's your turn to join for testimony, I will call your name and a member of my staff will promote you to be a panelist. If you wish to activate your video, which is preferred, while you testify, you need to click the button in a tool at the toolbar at the bottom of your screen that looks like a video camera. Public witnesses that are ANC commissioners and from bona fide organizations will be given 5 minutes to testify. Public witnesses from the same bona fide organizations will be given 3 minutes. All other witnesses will be given 3 minutes. When your time is up, I ask that you please conclude your remarks so that we can stay on schedule today and be respectful of the other witnesses who are present. If you have any technical issues during the hearing, please notify my staff either via the Q&A function on the Zoom by sending an email to facilities@dccouncil.gov, which we will be monitoring throughout the hearing. All testimony and pre-hearing documents that have been submitted are available now on the council's hearing management system. Witnesses are reminded to please submit a written copy of your testimony for the record by either uploading your testimony to the council's hearing management system or emailing it to facilities@dccouncil.gov for us to upload. The record for this hearing closes at 5 p.m. on December 4th, 2025. We are holding this roundtable on DPR Pools today because residents across our city are too often experience something they shouldn't, which is showing up at their neighborhood pool ready to swim only to find the doors locked with no explanation, or discovering at the last minute that their pool is closing early, or learning through word of mouth, not from DPR, that the pool won't be opening at all that day. These aren't just minor inconveniences. District residents have shared with us how these disruptions have genuinely upended their lives. A pregnant woman who can no longer safely run needs the pool for exercise but can't rely on it being open. Seniors who depend on swimming for cardiovascular health are finding it difficult to maintain their fitness routines. And parents hoping to take their children swimming are turned away without warning. Longtime swimmers who have built their morning routines around pool access for years, sometimes decades, are now biking in the dark to pools miles away from the homes if these pools are even open when they arrive. These disruptions aren't affecting everyone equally. Roosevelt Pool in Ward 4, Dunbar in Ward 5, and Ballou in Ward 8 have been closed for months on end, while pools in Wards 1 and 3 remained open throughout the summer and continued operating today. When residents in some wards can enjoy their neighborhood pools while others cannot, that's not just an operational problem, that's an equity issue that demands our attention. What makes this situation frustrating for residents is the lack of sort of clear, consistent communication is the overarching theme. Residents are told by DPR staff on site that the disruptions are caused by chronic staffing shortages or abrupt staff firings or insufficient funding. Residents were also given reopening dates that came and then went without proper notification or explanation. These experiences leave residents waiting, confused, and unable to access facilities they rely on, and are further troubling in the context of DPR's assurances during oversight season earlier this year that the pools would not face reduced hours and that there was no lifeguard shortage. District residents pay taxes that fund these pools. It's fundamentally unfair when they can't depend on them being open, and they deserve advance notice when schedules changes. They deserve honest, transparent communication. And that's what this oversight hearing, this roundtable seeks to improve by hearing from those residents today on how we can improve open, clear communication and make sure that we are operating the pools in the way that that doesn't lead to these disruptions in their lives. Today, I am honored to hear from DPR about what's actually happening with our aquatics operations. Why are there staffing shortages? How are those staffing shortages being addressed, and what we can do differently to hire more lifeguards to make sure lifeguards are more consistent part of our ecosystem, how we can minimize schedule disruptions with the lifeguards we have, and why has communication with residents become inconsistent, and looking for what specific concrete steps is the agency taking right now to ensure that every resident in every ward can reliably access the pools that they pay for. With that, seeing none of my colleagues are here yet, we will jump right in to our witnesses. I will turn to our first panel of witnesses. If I mispronounce your name, please make sure you state it correctly for the record as well. And please indicate your pronouns so that I can refer to you correctly. Michael Dodman, public witness. Jesse Strauss, public witness. Rich Siebert, public witness. Matthew Chambers, public witness. Jessica Alves Disa, public witness, and Alexandra Simbana, public witness. We will begin with Michael Dodman.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Good morning. My name is Michael Dodman. I am one of your constituents, a Ward 4 resident, live in Petworth, been there for 11 years. My wife and I have both been regular swimmers at Roosevelt Aquatic Center. We're lucky enough to live just a couple blocks away from it. I want to say your summary of the issues was spot on. And I'm going to try and shorten my testimony because you really hit all the high points. I'm sympathetic to the fact that the city has gone through some budget issues. I was not surprised, in fact, to hear that Roosevelt was potentially going to close over the summer when the staff at the pool told regulars like myself and my wife that that might be coming. I was surprised that I only heard it from them and not from DPR. I follow DPR on Twitter. I'm a regular visitor to their website to try to keep on top of things because it's not just the pool. We use a lot of other DPR facilities. There was nothing at all throughout that period. I even in September, when the promised reopening after the summer break and schools being back in session and outdoor pools closed, when that happened and I showed up at the pool, as I usually do early in September in the morning, only to find it locked, I did reach out to DPR on Twitter directly to say, hey, what's up? Got no answer. And it was after that I reached out to your staff to try to seek information that should have been coming from DPR, and unfortunately found out that the communication with your staff, with the council, has been just as bad as with residents. I won't go through the back and forth of going on and off the website trying to keep up with things and deadlines, as you mentioned, that have come and gone. Let me just say that I've never attended or testified at a hearing before. I'm here because I really care about the city and I care about these facilities. I think what DPR does is mostly great, and it's what makes our city great. I will say that communication from DPR on other facilities is pretty good because, again, I do follow their channels of communication. And on certain issues, on aquatic issues like the Wilson Pool closing a couple of years ago, communication was very fulsome. So would love to know what's going on and why, as we all would, why the communication has failed. I would obviously love to see the pool back open. We will happily go back. But I'd mostly love to see my faith, and I'm sure the faith of some of the other residents of the city, taxpayers of the city, restored in city management, in the operations of our city, because I intend to stay here in this city for a while, and I really hope that it will be a strong, vibrant community, including with pools to provide health benefits and a return on all that investment in the Roosevelt rehabilitation and the public access doors. So to conclude, I want to thank you, Councilman, for your holding this hearing, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Jesse Strauss.
Hello, my name is Jesse Strauss. First, I would like to thank you, Councilmember Lewis George and Sebastian Wyman, for being so responsive on this issue and for holding these hearings and for answering our emails. I also live a few blocks away from Roosevelt Pool. I think I've probably seen you around at the pool. When I first moved to Petworth 2 years ago, I was so excited to be within walking distance from a real free lap pool. Swimming is one of the few exercises I actually enjoy, and one of the few ways I can really disconnect from technology and be in my own head. 4 times a week, I would go to Roosevelt Pool and swim for 30 minutes. This did wonders for my physical and mental health. One summer morning, I got up early, ventured over to the pool, only to be confronted with a sign saying Roosevelt Pool was closed for the summer season. I was really disappointed, especially since it was open for most of last summer. It wasn't too much to expect the same level of service we have gotten previously, but I got over it. When school started, the sign was up, the pool was closed. A few more weeks went by, the pool was still closed. I reached out to Councilmember Lewis George's team, who were extremely helpful in pressing for the answers and keeping us informed. In this email chain, a representative from DPR said, and I quote, DPR is pleased to report that public access to Roosevelt Pool will resume during the second week of October. It's the middle of November now, and the pool is still closed. When the pool failed to open again, we followed up and we were told DPR recently revealed the agency cannot open Dunbar, Roosevelt, or Ballo to the public for at least this current season due to lack of sufficient staffing. The same staffing issues are causing late openings and early closures at other pools across the district. I followed up and asked why DPR does not have the funding to open these pools, and was also told, and I quote, to clarify, the current closure does not appear to be a funding issue. If this is not a funding issue, why can't DPR hire staff? It seems to me the only reason they can't is because they do not pay pool staff well enough. And if that is the case, that it isn't a funding issue, how is there money for stadiums and lots of other things, but not to hire a few lifeguards? I don't understand how DPR can put up signs and announce opening dates and then just not follow through, pretend like we don't notice. The pool sits there filled with water and no one to swim in it. How is that a good use of resources? Lots of people rely on these pools every day. Every day I went there, I saw teenagers, I saw elderly engaged in water aerobics, school swim meets, parents teaching their children to swim, people like me who love the water and looking to disconnect, people who can use great community resources without paying exorbitant gym and membership fees. The Roosevelt Pool was a true public good and a pillar of our Petworth community. DPR owes us a real explanation for why this anchor has been taken from us, and they must do everything in their power to bring the pool back into operation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Rich Siebert.
Yes, good morning. Madam Chairman, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to the panel and to give my thoughts on this. My situation is very similar to your summary. I thought that was a very well-stated summary, and I wanted to just foot stomp that summary. And then the two folks that spoke before me, I want to also say they're spot on and with the experience. My only difference for me is that I am a new DC resident. I've been I was a health promotions director on a Marine Corps base in Japan and traveled all over the world. And I decided to live here in DC, and I chose my residency here on N Street, right next to Dunbar High School, because of the pool, because I could just get up and I could walk over and swim. I also chose a fitness gym that didn't have a pool based on the fact that I would have access, to the pool at Dunbar. I want to just emphasize the points that my fellow swimmers made, and talk a little bit about how at that pool, because I just moved in DC. I'm a new DC resident. I just moved here in April. So for me, it was such a great way, community-wise, to meet people in my neighborhood or meet people with common interests. There were folks that would use the pool that their doctor had told them that they, needed to improve their health. There were some that had rehab, were rehabbing knees or hips or other issues, and the pool is just so great for people that just can't take the pounding of some of the other forms of aerobic exercise. I do teach swim classes for the Rockville Municipal Swim Center on a part-time basis, so I am well aware. And I swam for the University of Maryland. So I am well aware. I spent my time in the lifeguard chair. I do know the difficulties in finding and keeping good staff in that area. So I'm sympathetic to the DPR staff. I've walked in their shoes. The issues with the communication have also been very frustrating. I just want to emphasize the importance of a pool here at Dunbar for the sense of community. It helps people that need to rehab and to helps them to improve their health. For those of us that are lifelong swimmers, it helps us keep our routine and keeps us, in a, in it, like you said, from having to go great distances to go to other pools. And then it's also a really great community, as you walk to the pool and as you swim and you see each other in other places, you get a chance to bond and make friends and kind of make that community that I think DC wants to make. And then the last point, there's several bits of research about the rates of opportunities for for people of color. And I just having been in Montgomery County, I want to make sure that DC does a good job of making their pools available so everyone has opportunities to learn to swim and be safe in the water. And with that, I want to thank the councilwoman or the chairman or councilwoman for the opportunity to speak. And I hope we can hear more from DPR about their plans moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony and also thank you for your service. Next, we will hear from Matthew Chambers.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I've been swimming at DC pools for more than 20 years, ever since the Tacoma Aquatic Center opened. I usually go when the pools are supposed to open at 6 a.m. Over the last 5 to 6 years, DPR's management of the pools has gotten much worse. There are 3 related problems. The pools are understaffed, there aren't enough lanes for lap swimmers, and DPR's public communications are abysmal. The staffing wasn't great at Tacoma this summer, but it's become worse since Labor Day. On at least one occasion, the pool simply had no staff at 6 a.m. or 7:30 a.m. The doors were simply locked. I have heard that the pool didn't open that day until 10 a.m. On about 25% of the days I go to the pool, including today, we are told that there are only 2 lifeguards, so lap swimmers have access to only 2 lanes. And DC residents who want to exercise in the shallow end are completely out of luck. For that reason, those residents have simply given up and stopped coming to the pool. Lanes for lap swimming. In the morning, the lanes in the deep end of the Tacoma pool are reserved for the DC Waves swim team, a team of high school students. In addition, there are 2 other swim teams that swim in the early morning. One swims Monday, Wednesday, and Friday and uses 5 lanes. Another team takes Tuesdays and Thursdays using 4 or 5 lanes. That means at most there are 5 lanes for lap swimmers. That's 5 lanes for all of the 85,000 Ward 4 residents. If there aren't enough lifeguards, lap swimmers are crowded into 2 lanes, or 1 lane for every 42,000 residents. None of these problems or limitations are ever communicated to the public. At the most, on occasion, a sign is placed on the front door saying limited lap lanes. Of course, if you've already gotten to the pool, the sign is too late. Years ago, when pools didn't open due to staffing problems, DPR would send out alerts by email and texts. This doesn't happen now. Here are my questions for DPR. Why are staffing levels inadequate? Did DPR fire lifeguards around the beginning of September? Why does Tacoma have so few lanes for lap swimming? Is the pool primarily intended for program activities, as one swimmer was recently told, and not lap swimming? Will Tacoma be closing for renovations soon? There is a rumor to that effect. Why is this happening so soon after the last renovations? Why doesn't DPR communicate any of these issues to the public? Is it because it doesn't want to be honest about DPR's many management failures? Thank you for this hearing and for the opportunity to testify. I apologize for taking so long, but there are so many problems with DPR's management of the pools. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we will hear from Alexandra Simbana.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Thank you so much. Good morning, Madam Chair. I am happy to have the opportunity to provide testimony on the state of our DPR aquatic program. I've played the Hunger Games trying to secure spots for my youngest children to learn to swim, but have only ever been successful once in 6 years. Because we haven't been able to secure many classes, we've chosen to take our kids to the pool ourselves. Unfortunately, taking our kids to the pool has its own challenges. We've been turned away often because there's not sufficient staff at the pool. In our 13 years of being parents, I think the baby pool at Tacoma has been open maybe less than 10 times. The baby pool is sadly underused, but it is a highly desired area and a needed section for our Tacoma facility and area parents. Staffing shortages is often shared as the reason for the lack of availability for the kids' pool or the use of the shallow end of the pool. Trying to ensure that our children learn how to swim and maintain confidence in the water is difficult when access is unreliable and unpredictable. When it comes to the adult staffing program, I have been fortunate to be able to do several classes to help with my physical recovery following surgeries. It has become a vital part of my ongoing recovery, and I would hope everyone would have the access to benefit from our pool facilities. I've had many opportunities to have many different instructors at different facilities, and overall, I must unfortunately share that the level of professionalism and common courtesy is severely lacking. Even though these classes are for adults, and sometimes even seniors, the lack of respect shown to class participants with use of language, yelling, mocking, and even throwing of equipment at participants by known bad actor teachers is not only a known practice, but institutionally tolerated. In the extreme cases when things have become physical or overly verbally abusive, I have called the aquatics division several times and never received any follow-up. I've seen dumbbells thrown at fellow classmates. I've heard adults berated and have been made to justify my own physical limitations following surgeries to an instructor because I was not moving to their satisfaction. Only after I stood up and would not accept their behavior towards me did the situation improve, but it only improved for me. Participants will look away from others being harassed so not to be the target of the abuse themselves. This is unacceptable in any way. I'm happy to provide more information and answer any questions on that. Lastly, I would like to highlight the extreme lack of functional showers, lack of working shower fixtures, lack of hot water in showers, lack of shower curtains, and much needed water extractors for swimsuits at all DPR pools. The pools are also in need of repairs often, and we have had several classes canceled at the last minute due to repairs. This can take a facility offline for several days, weeks, or months, and at the last minute, you get notified that your class may be across town. This not only impedes continued rehabilitation efforts, but can impact someone's real health journey back to 100%. I hope that we can help get some answers from DPR today, and especially as it pertains to staffing, make sure that we have staffing levels that allow people to use the pools and use them with dignity. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And thank you to this panel of witnesses. My first question for the panel is around what would be clear and concise communication for you? Your users, what I think we've heard in the past, there would be emails or texts sent out. What if DPR said today we're going to make improvements? What would you tell DPR those improvements need to be as it relates to the communication piece? Jesse.
At the very least, like they should keep going with texts and emails. Like for the Roosevelt pool, like they haven't really updated their schedule. Like when I showed up and the pool was closed, there was nothing that indicated online or never got an email that it was closed. It's like kind of difficult to even sign up for these text messages. And then like if a sign says that the pool's gonna close for the summer season and it's gonna be closed after that, they need to at very least like update the sign on the door. Like I feel like it's just like very minimal basic stuff that should be obvious.
Thank you.
I'd say it should be two things. One is advance notice, whether that's by putting up signs in the facilities. This facility will be closed on XYZ date for this period, and also on the website and in Twitter and in text, and then real time, the daily closings. It's not just at Tacoma. There have definitely been occasions at Roosevelt as well where you just show up in the morning and the doors are locked, separate from the summer issues. And those should be done in real time. Yes, 6 in the morning is early, but if these facilities are going to be open and staffed by, let's say, staff working in the facilities doing the actual work, it's not too much to assume that somebody could be sitting in the DPR offices providing that real-time communication, which sounds like from our colleague who's been swimming longer than I have here that did happen in the past.
Yeah. Thank you for those suggestions. And I think, Mr. Chambers, you covered a lot in your testimony as well as around suggestions. Do you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yes, a recent weekend, the pool was limited to 2 lap lanes all weekend because of water polo. And I didn't go, but I heard from other swimmers who showed up either to swim or take their kids swimming, that when they got there was a sign saying limited lap lanes, but that's all the communication was. There was no text, no email. This clearly was known in advance. There's absolutely no excuse for DPR not sending out an email or a text.
Yeah. Thank you for that. The question of staffing has come up, and we, in our previous oversight hearing, we mentioned staffing and said, will that be an issue? And DPR at the time said there was no staffing issue. It sounds like from your experiences on the ground, you've been told on the ground by DPR staff that is there, that staffing is an issue. Is that correct, everyone?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can't say that for myself. I haven't heard that, but I have seen that staffing is limited because I do swim now at Tacoma with Roosevelt being closed, and I've seen the exact same issues there that the others have mentioned.
Mr. Chambers or Mr. Siebert, what have you heard on the ground?
I've heard that it was a staffing shortage, that it's because I'm at Dunbar, so mine was a little bit different. But when I did swim at Dunbar, there were maybe 3 lifeguards that would show up. It didn't look like there was a deep pool of lifeguards. There was just a few. So when you only have a few, then if one person, quits, then a third of your staff is gone. So even while it was running, there was not a robust number of lifeguards. And then as a side issue, and as a professional in the aquatic area, I'd say that there's probably no real good reason to ever have a lifeguard in a chair with a phone, and that practice has to stop as well.
Understood.
Well, I would add that I have been told by DPR staffers at the pools and by other swimmers that some lifeguards were laid off earlier, I think in September. There was a rumor that someone had failed their certifications. I've also heard that lifeguards who are seasonal lifeguards, none of those were retained for the fall season, which is a little bit unusual. I understand that most of the seasonal lifeguards leave at the end of the summer, but not all of them do.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that. And these are questions I'm hoping to parse out with DPR today. And then one thing that has come up and want to note, and I think you, Jesse, in your testimony particularly discussed the benefits it's had on your mental health and physical health. I think this is really important because one of the things we are hearing is that some of these pools were closed because they didn't have as many users as others. But to me, I think how much people benefit from swimming is much more important than how many people benefit. Can you talk about how swimming has helped your mental health, your physical health, and what it's been like since you haven't been able to swim at Roosevelt?
Yeah.
And to others.
I mean, swimming is like one of the few exercises that I actually really like that I don't find really boring. I would, it was a really good way for me to get up really early and start my day. And like, you can't listen to a podcast while you swim. So it was like almost like meditative, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And then like the idea that not many people use the pool, like at Roosevelt, we would often have to like share lanes. Like in the mornings, I would see older people practicing like water aerobics. I've seen parents like teach their kids how to swim. Like it's extremely rare that I've been there and like was the only one there. Like lots of people use the pools. And like now, I still want to like exercise and have like an outlet. So I joined the gym that's across the street, but that's like an exorbitant membership fee. And I feel like I've been paying for this pool with my tax dollars. I'm paying the same tax dollars and now I'm paying more to go to a gym. And it just like, it would be great to have the pool back so that, we can save money and we can also like use this community resource that's just like sitting there, like this giant great pool's just sitting there.
Thank you.
My wife and I started swimming regularly during COVID. That was really critical at that time, and because we loved it, we've stuck with it. I can't point to any transformative health and mental benefits, although I'm still here and I'm in better shape than I've ever been. So hopefully that's been a part of it. I will just say for Roosevelt, I agree. Roosevelt is well. I'm only there in the morning, so I can't speak in the evenings, but it is well used. It is not overcrowded. It is a smaller facility, certainly than Tacoma, which is the other main one I'm aware of. I'm sure, when DPR gets to presenting their evidence, they will talk about, relatively fewer people swim at Roosevelt than swim at Tacoma or Turkey Thicket or some of the other bigger facilities. That's true, but let's not forget that the school pools are open very, very limited hours, and we cannot just talk about the total number of users. It needs to be users per hour opened if we're doing comparative statistics.
Yeah. And Mr. Siebert, I know you're at Dunbar. What would you say as far as sort of users and what you've witnessed and seen?
Yeah, echoing everything that I've heard from the other panelists, I want to just emphasize the importance of a pool in rehabilitation for people that have had issues where they've had surgeries on their knees or hips or lower extremities and they can't run or ride a bike or do other things, and their ability to get into a water environment where they can like there's a ramp at Dunbar so they can walk in, they can do different exercises to improve their mobility and the strength while they're recovering. And I've talked to several folks that are there because their doctor said that they really needed to, to use the pool to help with their rehab. Also, there are folks that have diabetes and other high blood pressure, other issues, and they use swimming in order to help them with keep their health in check. So I do think, I have not done an exact survey, but I would say, especially in the evening, when I tend to go more in the evenings, that there are usually 4 or 5 people in the shallow area that are just there to do water running or to do other exercises while I'm doing lap swimming. So I do think that piece is really important.
Yeah, thank you. And Matt and Alexandra, both of you have spoken to some programming happening at Tacoma and balancing that out with the availability for, residents, public users who are not a part of that programming. How would you like to see as far as DPR balance those things and also communicate those activities?
Well, I've been lucky enough to take classes at both Rumsey and at Tacoma as I've been recovering from back surgery. Um, and I do want to just highlight that during this time, I have met a number of people varying in ages that may be recovering slowly, and doing what they can in classes during the day or going later in the evening. Um, and they find it invaluable. I have found it invaluable. It has taken me from being in a wheelchair to back to fully walking on my own, during the course of this last year. And, gaining mobility that way has been, incredibly helpful, not only to me, but to my family and my young children. But I would also highlight that even when you're in a class, um, and you're lucky enough to have grabbed a class spot, it would be helpful if some portion of the pool, especially in the shallow end, were reserved for people who that might be the only chance that they get to go to the pool, to go do some water walking laps, or, they're at the beginning of their recovery journey and they're not ready to, be as movement oriented as you would need to in a class. Um, Oftentimes I've seen people turned away because a class is happening. And so, no, I'm sorry, you can't work on your rehab and walk just on the border of the pool. I think there needs to be some, flexibility to allow people to access the pool when they have that availability in their schedule. And I've seen, you know, people as young as like in their 20s to, seniors, taking full advantage of the pool for that access, for the classes for that purpose. And it's been lovely to meet people from across the city, as we're all trying to like improve our health and get back, to fully functional.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to add that I've been going to Roosevelt since it opened to the public and only went back to Tacoma this summer after Roosevelt closed. So I have experience at both pools. And as far as DPR's comments about which pools or parent comments about which pools have the most traffic, well, you're not going to get a lot of traffic if the pools are an unpleasant experience or they're not open. And in fact, at Tacoma, the number of people there some days is quite small at 6 in the morning. But it's no wonder because you have an experience like I did today when I got there at 6 a.m. and they said there's only 2 lanes and there's already 6 of us there to get in, and more people are coming. I ended up going home, coming back at 7:15. And frankly, as far as DPR's ability to track this, I'm very skeptical because at Roosevelt, most of the time they didn't have the ID reader working. And so we would just sign in on a piece of paper in a notebook. And that piece of paper, the notebook kept getting fuller and fuller with nobody ever taking it anywhere. And at Tacoma, many days, the reader, there's nobody sitting at the front desk. So again, they have a sign in on paper. And that paper is not scanned in or added anywhere. So, DPR may be saying that, but it's just, if you have more lanes, if you cut back, if you have adequate lifeguards and you cut back on the number of lanes allocated to swim teams, then, oh, I should say, Tacoma, at the beginning of the month, this month, they expanded the area for the DC Waves team and reduced the number of lanes available to public lap floors in the morning. And they haven't bothered to move that back. So there are now 10 lanes in the deep end that are used by DC Wave in the morning. Once DC Wave leaves, they keep that area closed. So public swimmers can't use the deep end, even though there are lap lanes there. And even though usually by 8 or 9 in the morning, there are adequate lifeguards to cover that area, they just simply don't bother to do it. So it's not just a matter of setting up rules, it's making the effort, it's allocating the lifeguard resources intelligently, and they're not doing that.
That's such a good point. Like if DPR is using the ID scans as their measure for how many people use the pool that day, there's no way that's accurate because there were several times I went to Roosevelt and there wasn't even like, you didn't even have to sign up. They just let you go through. So like that, if that's the data, then like it's going to be wildly off base.
Thank you guys for that. And Alexandra, I'm deeply concerned about the behavior of DPR staff you mentioned in your testimony. And so it's truly unacceptable. And please follow up with me in my office so we can work with DPR to get to the bottom of what is happening there. Thank you to this panel of witnesses for coming out and testifying with your first time testimony. Thank you so much. Hope to see you. Well, maybe hope to see you back. And and when you're back, you're saying everything is working great, and I'm proud to be a district resident and a user. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are going to move to panel 2, which consists of Matthew Gunn, public witness, Pamela Farrell, public witness, Mallory O'Connor, public witness, Molly Milgram, public witness, ANC Commissioner Paula Edwards, and Shirley Thompson, also public witness. Okay, we're going to call up some people. How many more? 3. We will, since I don't see some of those people here, we're gonna, Amanda Bartman, public witness. We're gonna add you to this panel. Wonderful. Okay. All right. Then we have some more people not here. So Amanda Alcott, public witness. Talib Din Ukda, public witness. And ANC Commissioner 5E01, Kyle Gartner. That's good. And Brenda Richardson, the coordinator of the Anacostia Parks and Community Collaborative. Great. Okay, Matthew Gunn.
Good morning. My name is Matthew Gunn, and I participate in community events in Ward 5, specifically in the past at Dunbar Pool. I'm a member of the District of Columbia Aquatics Club, which is one of DC's largest swim teams that practices in the area. And we usually host practices at the Dunbar Pool in the past. And I just want to say thank you for holding this roundtable on DPR, pools closures, communications, and staffing. And I'm here specifically to ask that there are better communications about pool reopenings and specifically for Dunbar to be reopened so that our team and our neighbors can return to the water. So Dunbar is one of those few pools that exist in this part of the city. And for swimmers that need to access that pool before or after work, and just as our master swim team, that is the case for a lot of our swimmers. It really has hindered some of our practices. So before the closure, our team practiced weekly at Dunbar, and our members range from swimmers in their 20s to their 70s. So there's a wide range of swimmers that rely on these pools for fitness, community building, and for protecting health and mental health. So the summer, Dunbar was we were communicated that Dunbar would be closed for the fall, and that Dunbar was closed. We had the understanding that it would be reopened after the outdoor season ended. However, that did not happen, and the communication has not been clear for a timeline if it will open in the future. So this has meant shifting in practices, different communications with DPR, and longer trips for certain swimmers to facilities that are more crowded. And some teammates may not be able to make those practices because of different locations or times. So again, I want to stress that our swim team is very grateful to DPR for having lanes available for our swimmers to use. But we are worried that longer closures could permanently weaken a program that has taken years to build. And then I also wanted to respond to the idea that Dunbar is a lower utilization pool. From what I have seen on deck, the lanes that we were assigned were full. And what limited hours in lane space may contribute to other swimmers outside of the swim team having conflict with our team would I think be better solved if there were more pools open in the area, such as Dunbar. And just in terms of staffing, I guess I would like to see more transparency as to why staffing at certain pools is different than others in regards to some of these closures. So I just wanted to end with 3 requests. First, that DPR reopen Dunbar and have better timelines in the future for closures and availability. I also just would like to see Dunbar operating year-round, and I think that the posted hours for early morning and evening times be more transparent and communicated. And then I would also call for DPR to be more communicative with our team specifically, just for planning purposes, and just identifying ways that we can help DPR as well with issues that they may be having. I've personally seen issues with getting into the pools. It seems like the staff at the pools have not received as much communication with the DPR as well. So I would also call for DPR to get an open communications within their own staff as well, to be better answer questions to community members at the pools themselves. So Dunbar is a place where our swim team trains. We're able to build community and protect our health. I think those are three pillars of community building that I believe are important. And yeah, with that, thank you for your time and for considering this testimony.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Mallory O'Connor.
Great, thank you. Hello, Chairwoman and members of the committee. Thank you for hearing our testimony today. My name is Mallory O'Connor, and I'm a resident of Ward 5, but also I am the captain of District of Columbia Aquatics Club, as Matt just mentioned. DCAC is a nonprofit U.S. Masters swimming organization that is LGBTQ based and represents more than 230 members in the DC area, providing fitness, competition, and fun for our membership and serving as ambassadors for those interested in adult recreational swimming. As an organization, we have had the pleasure of holding practices across a range of DPR aquatic facilities, including some of those that are the subject of this hearing. We find that having access to multiple facilities across wards is critical not only both for an organization like ours, but for the overall population of DC, ensuring a range of opportunities for community members to enjoy aquatic facilities. We were concerned to see these facilities not reopen following the summer closure, particularly given that we had previously used Dunbar as one of our key practice locations. Our concern is that limiting the availability of these facilities places additional strain on other facilities in the district and also limits opportunities for pool use for citizens of DC and DCAC members. Also, that these current closures will impede future reopening of these locations, once they're offline for some time. Are there impacts to the maintenance of these facilities? Is reopening them a bigger challenge than it would have been before? I would also mention from the strain on other facilities, we have seen over time, I think others on the previous panel referenced, for example, the closure of Wilson, which took quite some time. And when, the city is over-reliant on a few facilities, if one of those goes offline, it creates challenges for everyone in the area. Additionally, we share these concerns that have been articulated about general disruptions in operations of facilities that are supposed to be open and around the limited communications on pool closures or changes. We believe DPR should provide more open communication via the existing text alerts, as well as publishing upcoming programs so that residents can know when pool space may be limited or restricted. We strongly support actions to ensure DPR has adequate resources and staffing to reopen these facilities, as well as to provide more regular communications around pool schedules. We appreciate your time and attention to these concerns and the shared goal of ensuring access to the joys of swimming to residents of DC. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Paula Edwards.
Hello.
Yes, good morning.
Good, thank you. Good morning. Thank you for holding this roundtable. I hope it's going to be very helpful because we've been hearing a lot about this subject lately. I'm Paula Edwards, ANC Commissioner for ANC 4A01. As a native Washingtonian, I've used DPR facilities since I was a child, and I'd like to see all of our residents have access to the best facilities possible. I'm not a regular user of the pools, but I have heard a long list of concerns from constituents and residents over the years. Recently, there have been complaints about the challenges in getting classes in poorly maintained facilities, and now the pools being closed altogether. One of the advantages of being an ANC commissioner is that I have been able to interact with DPR management, communications, and staff. Excuse me. For the most part, I have found them to be dedicated to their mission and invested in providing the best services possible for DC residents. I know also that they often operate under very difficult circumstances. As many have noted, communications with the public is a major issue. Earlier in my tenure, I regularly received communications from DPR about programs, closures, and other issues. Recently, those have been very sparse, and it is very unfair to the public. I would posit that both intra and interagency communication is also an issue. I ran a check of the 311 calls for pool, spray park, and playground maintenance in 2024 and 2025. Citizens are calling in reports that one would think should be reported by facilities personnel or part of routine maintenance. I constantly receive complaints about issues that should be part of life cycle maintenance. This makes me wonder about the interagency communications between DPR and DGS and the life maintenance plans. While speaking to management is very valuable, I urge the council to make time to speak to frontline workers in a way that provides confidentiality. In years of designing systems, I've found that management will provide one perspective and frontline workers provide another. In order to solve problems, administrators need as many data points from as many sources as possible. End users, rank and file, and management who provide open and honest information are essential. An operational audit of the different facilities to ascertain that the facilities are operating as they should can also help. These problems could be about insurance, staffing, budget, maintenance, or a combination of everything, but we have to have good data in order to solve them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Amanda Bartman.
Good morning, and thank you to the Chair, Councilmember Lewis George, for convening this panel and to the committee for your time. I'm here to share my experiences as a Ward 4 resident, having lived in the Tacoma neighborhood since 2008. In the last few years, swimming has become a lifeline for me. Following a significant injury and surgery, swimming became not just a pastime, but an important part of my rehabilitation and regaining my mobility. However, in recent years, I found my local pool, the Tacoma Aquatic Center, has been largely inaccessible to regular residents. There are two major problems. The first is a lack of equitable access. As has been testified to earlier, the Tacoma pool is completely monopolized by private groups during peak times. On multiple occasions, I found exactly 1 of 17 total lap lanes is open to the public during the evening hours, with the others being reserved for private groups. During many peak times, the entire deep end is closed because the only lifeguard is staffing the middle section, which the public is restricted from using every weekday from late afternoon until after 8 p.m. Nearby residents are repeatedly impacted. I have watched young parents show up on a Saturday morning only to be turned away because the baby pool and the shallow section are closed. Lifeguards are asking more than 5 people to share a lane because there's only 1 lane that can be used by the public. Frequently, swimmers are forced to swim laps in the open area, the shallow pool, which leads to dangerous collisions and causes other safety concerns. While lifeguard staffing is a huge issue, there's also a disparity in which pools are used by the private groups. There are currently 13 indoor pools across DC, yet the DC Wave swim team holds approximately half of all their practices at just one single pool, the Tacoma pool. The second issue is a lack of transparency and notice. There's simply no way for DC residents to know when the lap lanes and other areas will be open for general use. During the height of the COVID pandemic, DPR published an online schedule in PDF form on its website showing who had reserved lanes or portions of the pool at certain times, and you could see how many lanes were open to the public at a specific time. Currently, none of this information is online or otherwise available. DPR also fails to notify the public when the pool is closed or there are schedule changes. Swimmers frequently show up only to find it's closed for a swim meet, repairs, or staffing issues with no notice, sometimes not even a notice on the front door. There are 4 concrete steps that DPR can take to immediately mitigate these problems. Number 1, allocate at least 1/3 of the open lanes to be available to the general public during peak hours. Number 2, ensure that private groups and swim teams practice at multiple pools, not just Tacoma and occasionally one other pool. Number 3, publish online a schedule showing the number of lap lanes and which areas of the pool are open or reserved at different times of the day so people can plan. And number 4, post online, send out an alert, and post on the front door a notice of any closures at least 1 week prior to when they occur. Thank you for your time on these matters.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, we will hear from Amanda Outcalt.
Hi, let me see, start video. Hi, well, so what I want to talk about is not as much what I think this hearing is about, but it is about pool access. I am one of those young parents that lives in Ward 4. I used to be a swimmer. I have a 5-year-old child now, and part of the reason we moved to the neighborhood was because of the Tacoma pool. I used to swim there, and once I had my son, I had high hopes that we would be able to use the baby pool there and teach him to swim, maybe even sign up for some DC public pool lessons for him. That's trying to get him into a lesson is like trying to get a slot at a Taylor Swift concert. It's become impossible. We've given up. We have taught him to swim on our own. And we've given up on trying to take him to the Tacoma pool because, as anyone who has a child knows, once you get all of your stuff ready, you get your child excited to go to the pool, you even call in advance to see if the baby pool is open and are told yes. When you get there and then you're told you're not allowed to swim, the meltdowns are incredible. So we've given up on taking him to the Tacoma pool at all. And most of our neighbors, we have a lot of young kids in this neighborhood, have the same disappointing stories about the Tacoma pool. Also, if they're counting clicks with how many people go to the Tacoma pool, I would say we would love to go, but we've just, like I said, given up trying. But what I also wanted to talk about was the Walter Reed was supposed to build a public pool, an outdoor public pool. Every house that we looked at in 2019 in this neighborhood had a pamphlet with a plan that was happening. We just recently got notified that that plan has been scrapped to have a public pool in the area after we were being told for 5 years that's what was happening. We take our son to Upshur in the summer. That's, I believe, the only outdoor public pool in Ward 4, despite how many young families there are here. We love the Upshur pool, but it's not close by. It gets incredibly crowded. And it's just, the hope of having this pool was one of the reasons we bought our house, in addition to the Tacoma Aquatic Center. So we've had 2 really disappointing experiences with DC public pools. We find ourselves now often paying to go to Maryland to Rolling Crest Chillin' Pool when our son wants to swim. I know that the Walter Reed pool plans, we were told, were put on hold because of the steam tunnels that were underneath the campus that apparently no one knew about until this year. But I know that some of the apartment buildings over there do have pools, so it can't be a campus-wide problem. But I just wanted to voice my disappointment in the DC public pools as a parent with a young child, not just as a lap swimmer, which I used to be, but to have a child and pay for this service with taxes and then not be able to use it at all is really disappointing. I want to thank you as well, Ms. George, for having this public panel. You were one of the only people that wrote me back when I sent an email about my disappointment about the Walter Reed pool getting scrapped. So I appreciate that you're having this now. So thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And as a new mom of a 1-year-old, I truly understand. I don't even think I truly understand the extent yet. I'm going to get there, what the meltdowns could look like, but just preparation.
You will get there.
But preparation taking them to the pool, I do understand already. And preparation alone can take a long time and a lot of effort. So thank you for that. Next, we will hear from Talib Din Ugda, public witness. Oh, he's not there. Okay. Kyle Gardner, ANC Commissioner 5E01.
Thank you and good morning. First of all, thank you, Councilperson Janeese Lewis George, for holding this hearing. Every time I've reached out to you as an ANC, you've been incredibly responsive, and that also goes to your staff as well, Sebastian. When I had to finally reach out to you all on this issue, you were the only person who ever gave honest and accurate information. So thank you for that. Again, my name is Kyle Gardner, and I'm the ANC Commissioner for 5E01, which is in the Truxton Circle neighborhood and is centered around Dunbar High School. A couple of neighbors have already talked about Dunbar High School, but for those who are not fully familiar with how it operates, it's one of a handful of indoor pools which are on DCPS property, but which are made open to the general public during non-school hours. In recent years, DPR has typically closed Dunbar Aquatic Center at the start of the outdoor pool season and then reopens it each fall after the outdoor pools close and around when school begins. However, this fall, when the outdoor pool closed and Dunbar High School opened back up, Dunbar Aquatic Center didn't. But I didn't learn about that from an email from DPR. There was no press release letting neighbors know why the pool was closed and when it would be reopened. DPR didn't post on social media informing residents of what was happening, and unless you went to one webpage which had a small currently closed tag next to Dunbar, Blue, and Roosevelt Aquatic Centers, there was no way of knowing DPR had decided, with no forewarning, to not operate 20% of the pool facilities it has in its inventory. I first contacted DPR on September 20th after a neighbor reached out. Other commissioners in the area had reached out to DPR even earlier. The initial response I received from DPR in full read, "To open the Dunbar High School pool safely, DPR must have the pool inspected by the Department of Health, staff must be hired, and all regulatory licenses must be received and approved by their respective agencies. This process starts at the conclusion of our outdoor pool season and cannot be done earlier, as we are working to make sure our outdoor pools are operational throughout the summer. All regulatory licenses and approvals are in the process at this time, and we do not anticipate any delays." Note this was a month after it normally opens, "or any delays with the opening of the pools due to the regulatory issues or concerns." So this message, which was similar to the responses other ANC commissioners received, insinuates, although it does not outright claim, that the cause of these delays are due to inspections and regulatory licensing issues, which cannot be done earlier. This, of course, does not make any sense, as in the previous 4 falls, DPR obviously had been able to satisfy any regulatory requirements to open early by early September. DPR did not respond in writing to my request for details regarding what precisely were the regulatory or licensing requirements at play, or why exactly there was a delay in getting these done. But I also trusted that this issue would resolve itself when the pool opened at the new target date of mid-October. But the pools didn't open in mid-October. And DPR did not even bother to let anyone know that it was not going to meet the self-imposed consolation deadline. Instead, on October 15th, in an email from DPR, I learned that DPR now had no anticipated date to reopen. Still, no explanation for why. And still, no true public acknowledgement that the agency had messed up. It was not until I engaged the staff of this committee that I learned what seemed to be the proximate truth. DPR is planning on keeping these 3 pools closed for the entire season, and that this was due to a lifeguard staffing issue. Now, all else being equal, perhaps a one-off staffing shortage was an unforeseeable event beyond DPR's control. But that's not the case here. The DC Council has routinely and exhaustively confirmed with DPR multiple times just this year that DPR does not have a lifeguard staffing issue. Imagine my surprise when I went back and watched the FY 2025 performance oversight hearing to find that there were minutes of questions and responses from DPR Director Freeman about this very topic. For example, under questioning from you, Councilmember Lewis George, about staffing levels, on February 24th, 2025, Director Freeman said, and I quote, "We don't have any vacancies right now for lifeguards who are permanent lifeguards throughout the year. We may have 1 or 2 attrition as it happens, but it is not a whole list of them." 1 minute later, the council member summarized Director Freeman's responses by stating, "You are adequately staffed, so there shouldn't be a reason for closures related to staffing." And Director Freeman did not correct your summary of the matter. But perhaps these staffing shortages were caused by the budget cuts imposed by Congress as a result of the March 2025 continuing resolution. But then why on June 5th, 2025, during the council's FY 2025 FY 26 budget oversight hearings, Director Freeman said once again, this time under questioning from Councilmember Zachary Parker, explicitly that, quote, "We do not have a shortage of lifeguards." So what happened between the confident declaration by DPR Director Freeman on June 5th, when she assured the council that DPR had no shortage of lifeguards, to less than 3 months later, where DPR has decided to, somewhat in secret, not open 1/5 of the indoor pools because it allegedly has a shortage of lifeguards? On October 29th, ANC 5E passed a resolution calling on DPR to provide an honest and transparent explanation for how this failure occurred. And the testimony that I've entered online details the questions that we raised in this resolution. We actually received a response from DPR, I believe yesterday evening, and it was completely unsatisfactory. DPR insinuates again that the reason they could not staff these pools was because of attrition from their summer lifeguards, which makes no sense in the context of the testimony that Director Freeman has already provided. DPR further insinuates in their response to us yesterday that this was some type of budget issue caused by the continuing resolution. But of course, we've heard separately from DPR that this was not a budget issue. And of course, Director Freeman gave her testimony in June, months after the continuing resolution had already been passed. The one thing I'll close, which I'd like to remind the council of and Director Freeman as well, is that the decision for Dunbar to not open up over the summer itself is a relatively new decision. Up until the COVID-19 pandemic, DPR had no issues with staffing this pool year round. And so I really look with sympathy to the folks who testified from the Roosevelt Aquatic Center who only recently experienced a summer closure, because what starts as a one-off can rapidly turn into a pattern of summer closures. The Dunbar Aquatic Center is an important recreational facility within 5E, as you've heard from many other residents. I greatly appreciate your time today and certainly hope we can get these not just opened up, but opened up year-round, and some real transparency from Director Freeman about how this has occurred and how it can be prevented from happening again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And thank you to this panel of witnesses. Before I ask you all questions, I just want to let anyone who did not get a chance to testify to please raise your hand so we can put you on a final and last panel. If you didn't get a chance to testify, we'll put you on a final and last panel. Before I ask questions to these witnesses, just let us know if you're in the, raise your hand if you are in the Zoom, and we will recognize you on the next panel. And same for if there's anyone in person who wants to join a final panel who is here. Okay, thank you so much all for your testimony. I think another overarching theme has been communication, clear communication, both with the public and with organizations and groups. Right now, for the organizations and groups, do you have a point contact person that you communicate with from DPR, or do you all just communicate with the staff that is on site?
Hi, so this is Mallory O'Connor with District of Columbia Aquatics Club. We do have staff contact points with the aquatics division. We work with them to negotiate schedule, but I will say, it is challenging often to get responses. And I think someone on the earlier panel, for example, shared the details of the water polo tournament that led to a pool closure. Like things like that, we are not notified about, even though we have regularly scheduled programming at these pools. So again, while we have a point of contact, that communication also could stand some improvement as well, because it takes time to get those responses, and we're looking to make these schedules and communicate out to our membership. And on the same token, if I could just take a moment to say too, I think what a lot of folks have raised about pool programming being published, I think we've faced oftentimes frustration from additional DC citizens about our team taking up lane space and that not being communicated. And we've offered to help facilitate that, the notices and things of that nature, but that isn't being put up there. And I think that could really, serve for people to know, oh, there's going to be a swim team here with 5 lanes in use. And that just doesn't get published.
Yeah. And I think one issue that came up in Amanda's testimony is sort of when the teams are using pools and organizations using pools, the lifeguard, do you all have your, I don't think you have your own lifeguard, because DPR probably wouldn't let you have your own lifeguard from what I know. So are you all relying on the lifeguarding staff of DPR as well for sort of to make sure that your members are safe as well?
Yes, exactly. And, we have a coach on deck with our
Right.
team. So we're kind of self-contained, but it does limit if they don't have enough lifeguards, for example, for us to be able to swim in the deeper end of Tacoma. They won't open that part, and then we'll have our 5 lanes. And, we're, of course, as a team, very conscious of the lane space we're taking up. If we have 5 lanes, we're usually 5 to 6 swimmers per lane on our team. If we can give up a lane because of, lower attendance for us, we will. But no, there's not a dedicated lifeguard for the team. So, the pool will be compressed if they don't have enough individuals for us to swim on kind of that deeper end side of the pool.
Got it. And Amanda, you gave some really great suggestions, sort of moving, how DPR could actually improve this. And I think you've been dealing with this as a Tacoma neighbor for years. What is the main reason? When you all do communicate, is it staffing that you usually hear for why they still won't reopen the other parts of the deep end even when the organizations are gone?
To be honest, I've kind of stopped asking.
Okay.
At this point, they usually say it's closed. We only have one lifeguard. I don't know why. I don't know if perhaps lifeguards are only
Mhm.
scheduled to come during the programmed events, and then when it's not a programmed event, it's a lower priority. I'm really
Mhm.
not sure.
Yeah. And then the kiddie pool is just something that hasn't been open for use for a long time, and that's the reason has been lifeguarding, staffing issues, from your understanding.
That's my understanding. When my children were young, I think we maybe found the baby pool open twice. And it's heartbreaking to
It
see
is.
these young parents who've been counting the minutes until 10 a.m. and then they show up and they turn home.
Yeah. As far as commissioners go, I know Commissioner Paula Edwards is here as well, and Commissioner Gardner goes. Um, from what you're hearing from constituents and your sort of communication with DPR, what are the concrete ways in which you really want to see DPR make improvements for communications for your constituents as well? And Amanda helped you out because she gave you some great ideas.
Yeah, but the main thing for me is just to be honest about it. I have a feeling that a lot of this is about insurance. And I think it would be interesting to look at what the insurance requirements are and the staffing requirements. And just to tell people the truth, we're not monsters. We're not going to tar and feather anybody. We just need to know what the issue is. And maybe, we can be part of the solution. The other thing I do want to say is the Parks at Walter Reed Pool, I left that out. That was part of the BRAC agreement with the community that allowed the development of that campus. And there was already a pool there that was a beautiful pool Walter Reed had just built. And we said, we wanted to keep it. And they said, oh, no, it's in a bad place. We'll tear it down, but we'll give you a new pool. And we haven't gotten that pool yet. So that was one point that I do want to make. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think I have a lot to offer on solutions that hasn't already been said, but the lack of communication on a regular basis just seems to be the most disappointing one. And it's really heartbreaking hearing some of these stories about showing up, especially with kids, and just being turned around. And then again, what the commissioner just said now is, I think, the other half of the story, right? Which is that there's no honesty or transparency on the back end for what's happened here. And even in the communications to this day, or in the testimony that I believe was uploaded by Director Freeman, they still don't really clearly communicate about when the decision was made to not open up these pools. And that obfuscation just makes no sense to me, other than some intended lack of transparency for reasons that are also not clear.
Yeah, thank you. Wonderful. Well, thank you to this panel of witnesses. Really appreciate your testimony. If you haven't uploaded already, please upload it so that it can be an official part of the record. And we hope to get some answers from DPR today and in the future, and to improve your use of the pools that you use your taxpayer dollars to fund. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to take a brief recess to 12:30 and then begin with the government witness at that time. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. We will now turn to our government witness testimony. Here with us today is Thene Freeman, Director of the Department of Parks and Recreation. Thank you for being here today. Before you begin your testimony, I'm going to administer an oath to you. So if you could, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give to the Committee on Facilities is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you, Director. You may begin your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Lewis George, members of the Committee on Facilities, Councilmember Freeman, and members of the public joining us today. I am Thene Mack Freeman, Director of the DC Department of Parks and Recreation. DPR's mission is to provide DC residents with equitable access to high-quality recreation programs, services, and facilities across all 8 wards. We are proud to operate a diverse, expansive network of public assets with 36 pools and aquatic centers. As you know, DPR has been named the #1 park system in the United States for the last 5 consecutive years by the Trust for Public Land, with the support of Mayor Muriel Bowser and Deputy Mayor for Education Paul Kine. I am pleased today to discuss DPR's robust aquatic offerings and our aquatic center operations. To get us started, I think we can capture the story and tell it in picture. I have a brief video for you. Play, please.
How you doing? My name is Levine. I'm 16 years old and I attend Dunbar High School. DPR has been nothing but a great experience for me. It's like just to start off my summer starting at Harry Thomas Recreation Center, like used to live in Northwest around Dunbar. Just starting at Aqua Naked events at home with the Sylvan. DPR has always been a great experience for me. They built me as a person, and I really enjoy everybody that works at DPR. Just to start off this year, I was graciously elected to introduce the mayor for the annual jump in, which I'm very grateful to do. After that, I jumped right in. I was working at Greenwood throughout the summer with a morning shift, and I also was invited to work a lot of the late night hikes, great overtime opportunities, great time to make great friends and meet great people, and get to know a lot of people around the city. You know, lifeguard in general really set me up for swim. And with responsibility, because the same way I have responsibilities here to take care of people's lives, I have my own responsibilities to take care of my life, my schoolwork. Some things I also want to highlight about DPR is the family that they really preach around here. They really preach commitment to your job and commitment to the other people around you, because you're not just serving yourself for a paycheck, but you're also serving your community. The shirt actually you have on is something that we just instated this year, which is the gold shirt for lifeguards. Gold shirt symbolizes your first year as being a lifeguard. So it's kind of like a prerequisite for the red shirts that all my upper tiers have around me. And I really look up to all my red shirts, especially my area supervisors and my managers and the pool operators and the gray shirts around me. And I really aspire to earn a red shirt one day, and after that, we're great.
Thank you. In fiscal year 2025, DPR's aquatic division welcomed nearly 750,000 visitors to our pools across the city, about 2/3 of whom visited our indoor pools. Our indoor aquatic centers operate from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., ensuring residents have free access before and after work and school. Of our 10 indoor pools currently open to the public, 7 are open more than 80 hours per week, with the remaining 3 open at least 39 hours weekly. According to the Trust for Public Land, the District of Columbia ranks 5th in the nation for public swimming pools per capita. This reflects the district's strong commitment to providing accessible and equitable aquatic recreation for all residents. DPR's aquatic division oversees programs for all residents of all ages, from prenatal to geriatric. One of our most popular programs, Learn to Swim, teaches swimming at all ages and all levels. We enrolled more than 2,200 participants in FY25. From the DC Senior Games to the Senior Swim Team to the Water Wizards, we welcomed over 3,100 older adults this year to our facilities. To promote mental health and wellness, we've held a series of what is now our very popular Sound Bath series, where attendees can meditate as they float on the water. We are continually trying new programs and expanding existing offerings to meet the demand. For example, we recently piloted a new Aquanator class, and we've expanded water polo, which used to be at a single site at Deanwood, but now has grown to a second site at Tacoma. We even use our pools to teach kayaking in a safe and controlled environment. Over 330 young people ages 5 to 18 participate on our competitive swim team known as DC Wave, competing in the USA Swimming Potomac Valley Local Committee, alongside other area private swim clubs and local jurisdictions. DC Wave offers district residents the opportunity to compete for regional and national titles and is one of the largest swim clubs in the region, hosting 6 regional meets annually and providing high-quality, affordable, competitive swimming opportunities to DC residents. All of the 13 DC Wave high school seniors in the class of 2025 went on to college, with 2 of them swimming competitively and 2 more receiving financial support from DPR through our Rec for All scholarship. These young athletes are also in a pipeline that will help fill our DPR lifeguard and aquatic staff positions. Moving into a lifeguard position requires proper training and certification through our lifeguard training programs, which prepare residents, especially our youth, for careers in aquatics. In FY25, DPR certified over 260 lifeguards through Ellis and Associates. We had 323 people complete traditional lifeguard training, while another 106 completed the Junior Lifeguard Academy. Monthly, we hold in-service training for all of our lifeguards as well. For anyone who may be hearing this or can tell a friend to tell a friend, if you're interested in becoming a lifeguard or know someone who is, please have them visit dprprograms.com. We are so proud to employ a dedicated team of full-time professional lifeguards. They collectively bring an average of over 10.5 years of experience to our agency. Their longevity with DPR and ongoing commitment to professional development reflect both their deep expertise and their passion for ensuring the safety and well-being of all residents. Beyond daily operations, our aquatic divisions also host signature events that bring the community together. This past summer, we were proud to host the world's largest swim lesson, offering simultaneous lessons across all outdoor pools. We hosted events during Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October, as well as our popular late night drip and our senior drip events during the summer. We're especially proud to host the annual Black History Invitational Swim Meet, which continues to lead the nation in promoting diversity and inclusion in aquatics. Through these programs, events, and training efforts, DPR Aquatics Division continues to strengthen community connections, promote water safety, and expand equitable access to recreation for all residents. We are proud of our partnership with the DCPS, supporting students' swimming curriculum while serving all district residents. DCPS third graders learn about water safety and basic swim skills by visiting and receiving physical education instruction at DPR Pools. This requires DPR to manage programming and pool space to accommodate DCPS, which we've done successfully for years. This year, to expand access for additional DCPS third graders, we made thoughtful adjustments to daytime access at Wilson Aquatic Center. Thanks to proactive communication, including direct outreach, on-site signage, and updates through our digital channels, these changes were implemented smoothly. We're pleased to report that the community has been highly understanding and supportive regarding the temporary modification to pool operations. We understand how eager residents were to return to Roosevelt, Dunbar, and Ballou pools at the start of the school year, and we share that same enthusiasm. At DPR, we are committed to providing consistent, high-quality recreational opportunities for all district residents, and that commitment guides our work every day, even when we encounter challenges that delay our plans, as we saw earlier this year when Congress passed a continuing resolution that froze $1 billion of local district funds. DPR faced significant staffing challenges due to this congressional action as a result of a hiring freeze. The constraints reduced our flexibility compared to previous years and increased the administrative burden associated with filling each position. When facing these hard choices, DPR's focus is on pools that serve the greatest number of residents while still maintaining access through geographically proximate facilities. A table showing the usage of each pool by month is included in my written testimony for your reference. From that table, I will highlight the very low usage of Roosevelt, Dunbar, and Ballou, which account for less than 5% daily average attendance at DPR pools and 3% of our annual attendance. Despite these challenges, we continue to work toward opening public access to 3 DCPS located pools at Roosevelt, Dunbar, and Ballou as soon as possible. While I am not yet prepared to offer a date, DPR will notify all residents and community members through Nixle alerts, facility signage, social media, email communications to ANC's council members, as well as on our Splash That page and other key partners once the date is confirmed. In conclusion, thank you, Chairperson Lewis George and committee for the opportunity to testify today on DPR's aquatic offerings and operations. We look forward to continuing to work with council to offer equitable access to aquatic programs and facilities, and I am available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Director Freeman. I want to note we've been joined by Matthew Fruman, Councilmember for Ward 3. We will have 10-minute rounds for council members as they show up. Let's start with talking about the closures of Roosevelt, Dunbar, and Ballou pools in wards 4, 5, and 8, which you've already ended with. You said in your testimony you all don't have a date yet for when the pools will open to the public. In DPR's October 31st response to the oversight letter that Councilmember Parker, Councilmember Trayon White, and myself sent, DPR said it was hoping to open the pools within the next 30 days. Even though you don't have a specific date, can you confirm if the pools will open by the end of November or the timeline which was expressed in your letter?
Thank you for that question. So we are working, as I spoke about the budget constraints, and I want to go back a little bit because I heard in testimony individuals heard me say in February and heard me say in June that we did not have a lifeguard shortage. All of these things are a point in time, and that is absolutely correct. So as you know, we start onboarding and hiring for our lifeguards for summer in December. We start our fairs. As you saw Khalil testify, who is a student at Dunbar, we had 106 young people go through our junior lifeguard training program. Those are young people ages 13 to 15. And the goal is for them, when they do turn 16, they can work as lifeguards. That's the testimony, and Khalil is a testament to that. And so with the congressional restraints, there were 2 orders that came down. There was a CA's order where we had to submit waivers to have individual candidates hired, and then there was a mayoral order, which there was a different level and layer of approvals that was required. So we had identified the staffing. We were just waiting for the approval. I had been working with the mayor's budget office, and I heard from the mayor, and I was fully confident that we would open and would not have any operational impact, because I know how the important summer is and minimal interruption to the summer operations is to the executive. So I was confident in that we would have the waivers. So I want to just address that first, because all things can be true and all things were true. And so we used funding. Once we had the waivers approved, we hired our people to operate our outdoor pools. As you know, we like to move seasoned DPR staff to our outdoor pools so that we have some tenured individuals interacting with the public to minimize confusion, giving information that's not true or information that can incite the public in not the best way. So that, of course, took place. And then as the summer was coming to an end, I think you had someone, I know that there was an individual who testified that in the past years, we've retained summer hires to assist. We didn't have that luxury this year. And so I think, as a matter of fact, I know I called you during the middle of the summer when council made another sweep, and we talked about how the sweeps would have an operational impact. And so at the end of the fiscal year, we just did not enjoy the luxury of having extra funding to support staff staying on, summer hires staying on, where we could put them at our school pools. And so we had to operationalize. Now, I just wanted to give you the background and the context so that I now can answer your question. October 1, new fiscal year, we've identified the talent. They've all are currently in the HR. We've had the approval to continue to hire them. And so they are all in the background suitability process as we speak. So we are excited about that moving forward. And our timeline stands true. I think the next EOD date we're waiting, once they finish compliance, they will onboard. I will let you know that the boiler at Dunbar is down. And so Dunbar is not operational currently. We're working with DGS, who's working to get that resolved as we speak. So that's the situation at Dunbar.
Understood. So that's a lot to unpack there. First, I want to unpack the usual attrition. There's usually some people stay on, or some people stay on and some people leave.
Correct.
What was that number this year versus previous years that meant that we didn't have sort of we had people leaving, and then how many people did we have leave and how many people did we have stay on to be able to add to?
So we had, I think, about 47 people leave this year. And then additionally, when we had people vacate our regular FTE positions, and we were backfilled, or those positions weren't necessarily backfilled. So we had this summer attrited about 47 individuals.
Got it. And were they temporary employees or like seasonal temporary employees, or were these permanent positions?
Combination. Permanent positions left to work in other parts of the agency, work at other district agencies. As you know, many of our lifeguards are grades 5 and 7. And so those positions usually pay anywhere from $38,000 to $50,000. And so people are leaving for other opportunities, and we weren't able to backfill those positions. So it's a combination of a lot of things that happen simultaneously.
Understood. And so, and then how many individuals did we get out of the, the junior program that you all run? That's great. Did we actually have anybody, I'm not calling the cadets, but they're Goldies. Thank you. That was the name I was looking for. How many Goldies became permanent DPR employees and became like permanent lifeguards?
So all of them as well had to offboard. We did not retain anyone at the conclusion of the summer. Any of our summer hires, all of our summer hires were off-boarded because we did not have the budget to support them staying.
Got it. And so now when Dunbar and Roosevelt and Blue originally closed, we were told, I guess, on the ground, and there's a different conversation between what is said on the ground versus what is actual truth. What we were told on the ground is they were being moved to the outdoor pools. So our assumption was they're at the outdoor pools, cool. When the summer's over, they're going to come back to our pools. Did those individuals who were moved to outdoor pools, where are they? Did they leave? Did they go to other positions, or sort of we thought we're going to get our people back and we're just trying to figure out where our people at that we were hoping to get back to open our pools?
Understood. I think one nuance that I may have failed to mention is we also opened 2 additional indoor pools with the Reservoir Park and Joy Evans in FY25. And so our inventory became larger. And so we had to make the difficult decision as to when attrition happened, what do? We did not at that time, we weren't able, especially without the support of our extended hires, we were not able to open all of the assets. And so we had to choose, make the decision as to the highest usage, maximum amount of hours, because again, as even the constituents have testified, there are limited hours at the school sites versus a 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. So we had to make those decisions, and they are all very close to another aquatic facility. Dunbar, you have Turkey Thicket, you have Reservoir, which is right up the street. Roosevelt, you have Tacoma and Wilson, which is not too far. And Blue, you have Fairby Hope and Berry Farm, which is right down the street.
So, help me understand the numbers, because are y'all basing it on because what we heard from the testimony is if you all are basing it on sort of cards coming in, cards coming out, that's going to be inaccurate. Is that what you base your numbers on, the card swipes, or how are you guys getting the numbers in your utilization chart?
So I know that the public believe, they know that when they swipe the card, they believe, well, if everybody doesn't swipe, but we're also doing a facility head count. So there's a head count that the lifeguards are doing as well. So we know the census of the facility. And for a Baloo, for example, I can tell you there may be 6 visitors a month.
And so that's based on the numbers you all provided. Those are based on the swipes and the, I guess, what do you call it? The count?
Mm-hmm. The head count.
The daily
Correct.
head.
The daily usage.
Okay. So that's what that utilization chart represents as far as numbers go.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And based on those numbers, that's how you do those were sort of the lower utilized,
and you had a facility that was near the asset where a constituent could easily access it. It may not be your ability to walk. If you live right across from Dunbar, you may have to walk or 0.8 miles to Reservoir. And so I understand it, but there is an amenity that's accessible.
Understood. We're going to come back to that when I give my opportunity to.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Lewis George. The way I'm understanding this, and tell me if I'm missing it, is that in the summer we were all in a tumult trying to figure out how to deal with the $1 billion that we were not allowed to spend, and there were different orders that were made. And that through that process, given the importance of our outdoor pool system, there was authorization to hire for the outdoor pool system so that we could keep that going. But there may not necessarily have been the same authorization for the indoor pool system going forward, although maybe there was the money. Then as the summer ended, there was enough attrition that you now didn't have the people to open these other Ballou, Roosevelt, and Dunbar to the public, and now you needed to wait to get new people, and you couldn't start hiring until the start of the fiscal year, and so now it's taking a little bit of time. Am I understanding?
That sounds like a pretty decent summary. I know it's complex. I know you get it though. And I will, with one slight correction, when you say, I think you said something, if I recall correctly, you said something about not having enough to operate indoor. So remember, we opened 2 new facilities. So again, we needed to hire additional lifeguards to sustain our current inventory and our current assets. And so we did hire for our summer operations. Through the funding, we had to offboard. So usually we could use seasonal hires and extend them. So this works perfect because remember how you always ask me to extend Hearst hours? And the thing that I will always say to you was if we have the budget, and it was always based on attrition. And if we had funding in that year to support, could I keep Hearst open or could we keep it open until September 30th? In years past, we had the funding and we kept the pools, 2 outdoor pools open well past Labor Day. This year was an exception. We did not have the additional funding. And so we had to cut them all off at Labor Day because we didn't have the additional staff.
Yeah, so I mean, my hope is that you don't have to operate quite so leanly so that you are in a position to keep a Hearst open into the fall and places in other parts of the city as well, because I do think it's a great amenity for folks. I mean, it's an interesting interplay between the pools in the schools and the DPR portfolio. And if I'm remembering correctly, there was a time, and I think I remember it because I pushed back against it, that the lifeguards for the pools in the schools originally was supposed to be paid for out of the UPSFF dollars from DCPS. And then there was a pushback to say, no, that shouldn't be the case.
I can't hear you.
I said originally, when those pools first opened, the lifeguards were supposed to be paid for out of DCPS dollars, even when for public use. And so there's a kind of grafting of systems that's happening here. It moves so that it falls onto you. I don't know whether or not your funding expanded to accommodate the new obligation to staff those pools. I do think when we have the pools, we ought to have them open to the public. And it sounds like that's your goal. And we need to make sure that you have enough lifeguards to do it. And hopefully it'll happen soon. I want you to have too many lifeguards. There's not a problem with too many lifeguards because people need jobs. So when you said grades 5 and 7 and 38,000 and 50,000, I thought that's a lot for a middle schooler to make, but grades 5 and 7 on the employment scale.
Correct.
So 38,000, is that $19 an hour? Is that what a start?
A grade 5, whatever the minimum wage is in the district, it could be $20 an hour or something. It's not a lot. And so that is why we do have the attrition that we have, because we've also partnered with OUC and FEMS because we believe that our lifeguards can naturally matriculate to another career that is in safety survival. And so, or emergency first responders, because we do consider our lifeguards as our first responders. And so we're trying to support them by elevating so that they can be able to support families and all the things.
Yeah, it does raise, and it was, I think you were saying 38 to 50, so 50 would be about $25 an hour. It's not a ton.
Well, remember grades 5s and 7s. So 5s are on the lower scale, and then the 7 is the next level. And then we do have some 9s, but even our aquatic managers are grades 11.
But what I'm getting at is, if we want to have enough lifeguards, do we need to think about an increase in the pay for lifeguards in an environment where costs in the city continue to go up?
So, Councilmember, I will say to you, both my predecessors, Director Hunter Director Anderson and myself, I've spoken with my committee chair about this as well. Just across the DPR portfolio, we're trying to increase the wages or the level in which our recreation staff come in, because it is low in comparison. You may start a entry-level position at DCLP as licensing officer at a grade 9, but our recreation specialist started grade 7. Recreation is a profession, and the mayor has acknowledged that she's working with us. She's provided funding over the last course of the years, and we took the grade 7s to a grade 9. And so we're all interested in moving the ball. I think the premise of how recreation started before any of us were in these positions and where we are now has changed. And so we're all working collectively to try to upgrade and professionalize play.
In the lifeguard spot, to what extent do you have flexibility to rely on part-time workers? I mean, do all your workers, do you try to have a 35 or a 40-hour week, or do you have a cadre of lifeguards who are working 20 hours a week, but who are filling gaps? Do you have the flexibility to do that?
So we're going to do that. All of our individuals work full-time. In other jurisdictions, they have the WAE, the wages as earned part-time. We don't employ that model. We're looking to implement that to kind of fill the gaps, but all of our staff have a 40-hour work week. You also know that our employees are governed by a collective bargaining agreement, AFG 2741. So all of our lifeguards are in unionized positions.
So does that constrain your ability, or can you still have a wages as earned?
And those are the things that we're working through, because there are some constraints as to who can work in recreation centers. There are some things that the CBA outlines, and we're working to mitigate that so that the constituent, can get what they need, which is someone in the building operating programs.
So in your conversations with the union, please tell them that someone like myself would like to see wages go up, but also the capacity to have part-time workers so that we are sure to have enough and expand the pie for everyone. The other thing, I mean, you list, and I'm going to go back to the schools just for a second. I hear you that they may be the lowest usage, but they're also available to the public the fewest hours, right? So Roosevelt, Dunbar, Ballou, they're not available to the public during the school day. Probably, I don't know how many hours a week they're available. So in terms of hourly usage, it might look not as low.
I don't disagree with that. I think your argument validates mine. I think we're saying the same exact thing. And when making the decision to use a pool, the public is more likely to use a facility that's open 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. than one that's open from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you on that. I'm about to run out of time. I would be hard pressed to say we could get to a place where we had too many pools that were close to too many people. So the idea that we have the infrastructure there and it's not being used for a certain number of hours, and there's some number of people who might use it, and maybe it could grow over time. Let's get people in the pool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fruman. I'm going to still come back to Roosevelt, Dunbar, and Ballou, because it also highlights an issue that we're trying to address today, which is inconsistent communication and not clear communication. And even today, when we look at sort of in response to our October 31st letter, you guys said it would be open, the pool should be open within the next 30 days, which would give us by the end of November. And now today you're saying we don't necessarily have a date and we'll get back to you on that date. And then the same over the summer, where people it was said, okay, we're going to communicate to you all that it's going to be closed for the summer, but don't worry, it'll be open during the fall. And then in the fall, it said, don't worry, I know it didn't open the day September, but don't worry, it'll be open by October. I forget the date, the second week in October. And then that didn't happen. The inconsistency in communication and an expectation and then not delivering that expectation. I'm sure you can understand, and everyone else understands how incredibly it's frustrating it is for somebody to say a date, say a time, and then that not be met, and then it not be communicated that would not be met. Why the inconsistency in the dates, and why the inconsistency or lack of communication? I think that's what people are most frustrated about. If you tell me something, let it be true. If it's not true, tell me it's not true, but say something. You know, that's where I think a lot of the frustrations come. So explain to me sort of why. What's that breakdown?
So, Councilmember, in my letter to you on October 31st, I said, we are hoping to reopen the sites above within the next 30 days. That's true. We are truly, that's the absolute truth. And we're working diligently to do that. Dunbar, of course, like I said, with the boiler being out, but we've identified the talent. They're in the process of onboarding. They've gone for background checks and suitability checks, because now we tried to have them just come back, but because they've been off-boarded through DCHR, and they've been gone for 30 days, they have to go through the suitability all over again. And so the next EOD date is Sunday, the 23rd. So our hope was to have them on that day. The one after that is December 7th. So I'm looking at the calendar as to, okay, how soon can we get these individuals on? Because I as well wanted to meet that deadline. So I just want to say that, because in my letter to you, I said we were hoping, and I didn't give a definitive, we'll be open in 30 days. So I want that. And I also want to take the time to acknowledge that there's an opportunity for us to self-correct. I heard the constituents. I heard them. Their ask is not unreasonable, right? We can do a better job of communicating closures. I heard it. I also appreciate the suggestions about, saying this lane is offline, or this lane is, or this is the practice schedule, know before you go. Because as a mom of a new baby or a toddler, it's a lot to pack up, get everybody there, and the disappointment and feeling like, your time is very limited anyway. I get that. So I've heard that. We're taking notes. I've chatted with my team. I do believe like our splash that page in the summer is highly used for our splash parks and our outdoor pools. I think if we can socialize and get the community to begin to use that as a real-time update place for information, I think that will help support with how the community feels like they're not getting what they need. That's a valid concern. And so let me publicly apologize to any constituent who believe that we did not do the best in communicating information to you all. We hear you, and we will strive to regain your trust.
Thank you. And can the splash that send text messages? I think they do, because I had it on my phone. It can send text messages. And how do people get, I think one person was saying how they used to get like emails and text messages.
So that's Nixle.
That's Nixle. Okay. That's what I was trying to remember. Is that capability, the capability is there?
Yes, ma'am.
And if people are signed up through the website, they should be able to get text messages and emails from Nixle.
Yes, ma'am.
Regularly.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I will also say there's one thing. So our collective bargaining agreement allows for staff, and this is for the closures when, because I've heard in the testimony when people say, I come to the pool and there's one staff there, and they say, well, there's not enough staff to open up. And so there are regulations, and we've talked about this, as to how many people that have to be on site before the pool can open up. The facility should be open. And so we should still allow our constituents to come in and do some of the pre-activities, even sunbathe, while our lifeguard or whomever may be en route. Our CBA gives individuals up to 1 hour to call in. And so sometimes that short notice, if someone's calling in that impacts operations. So then we're trying to shuffle the deck to see where we can send, where we can backfill. But to the constituent, it's like, okay, nobody's here. There's not enough staff here. There's a staffing shortage. And it may just be someone stuck in traffic, or they've made the decision to call out. And again, we have, especially in the summer, like our lifeguards are sometimes college age, or, they may stay out all night and then come to work the next day. So those are some of the things that, you may experience, but that's not
reality. How many people did DPR hire for summer positions in 2025?
2025. We hired 462.
Oh, wow. And how many summer lifeguards were hired?
114.
Okay.
114.
Okay. And you would say, did DPR post enough lifeguard positions to basically, as far as how many summer positions were posted? I guess is the question.
So we hired 114 lifeguards for the course of the summer. We had enough to maintain our lifeguards. And again, as I shared with you in the council hearing in February and in June, we had enough staff at that time. And we were confident in our summer hires and what we hired and what we had identified.
Got it. Because one of my thoughts was a question of whether DPR posted enough lifeguard positions to basically keep every indoor and outdoor pool open over the summer. And your answer to that would be yes, we did.
Right. I will also say closing the indoor pools, like the school-based pools in the summer, it's a couple things. We made that decision a couple years ago. Dunbar, when the schools are closed, the schools may have other things happening in the school. They may have summer school happening. They may have other activities happening in the school. And then they also need the time to just do some things in the school. So it just made, and what I mean, like fix whatever's happening, the schools usually use that time in their summer ready transition. And so it's no different for the pools. So it just made sense. And then the outdoor amenities open up. And so there's lots of options for pools in the summer. So we made the decision, because it made the most sense, to take those pools, the school pools, offline so that they can undergo whatever they need to do, all the summer ready operations, while having access to an amenity.
Okay. So then it wasn't, because I guess everybody thought the pools were closed just because of the staffing issues and that our people were being moved to the outdoor pools. So do we foresee that this is a decision that DPR is going to make in the summer coming? Because when I email residents back, I said, I'm so sorry, but we don't have the short staffing, and our priority and DPR's priority is safety. And if we have to have enough lifeguards, if a pool is going to be open, like safety is paramount to everything else. And people sort of were frustrated, but they understood that. Now I think they're going to be like, okay, well, if it's not the staffing, why does maintenance have to happen over summer? Or is there another time maintenance can happen? Because what I think is now they're going to expect that we should expect that the school pools, based on what you're saying, will now just be closed over the summer, whether you all have enough lifeguards or not.
So we've done this practice the last 3 summers, and it seems to have worked because there are options for outdoor pools. And the other indoor pools, as you know, undergo their maintenance, the preventive maintenance, where they may go offline for 2 weeks. Usually in February, we start from like February to May with our other indoor pools.
Yeah.
And so it just makes sense to have the DCPS pools offline. Yes, ma'am.
If that's the case, then there is an equity issue, because no shade of Matt Fruman, but if Jackson Reed then got to be treated the same way as Roosevelt, or Marie Reed would have to be treated the same as Dunbar. because they're also school pools and they stay open during the summer. So if DPR moving forward is going to make the overall decision that indoor pools are going to be closed for maintenance during the summer because outdoor pools are open, then it has to be equitable across the city or inventory, or there are going to be some issues.
I hear that. I hear you. Jackson Reed, Wilson Pool is separate from Jackson Reed. Those amenities are not in the same. It's in the same.
They in the same
vicinity,
space.
but they're not in the same building. Wilson is
It's a little atrium. Fine.
that atrium makes a big difference though. But it's a standalone facility that's really not even associated with the school. It's just happened to be in proximity. And so I hear you.
Understood. Sorry. That's more from me.
Yeah. That atrium, while we're thinking about that atrium, that door is an issue. And so, I mean, that it is a link to this school and creating a porousness that but I will second your emotion that it is a distinct facility that has always been under DPR. Well, I don't know. If it's
Thank
always
you,
been under-
council member, for
at
that
least into the
validation.
2000s. I don't know, actually, Janeese, when you were coming up, whether when the old school, it was part of the school, but after the renovation, it was a DPR facility. So, Rumsey, where is Rumsey located? Is that next to Eastern Market?
It is.
That's one that's in the pipeline to get a major renovation?
Yes, sir.
Are there other ones in the pipeline to get major renovations?
Renovations, Anacostia Pool, that's an outdoor pool. Major renovations.
And not jumping off the page. And in terms of the 450,000 in FY25 for the indoor pools, it looks like 450,000 folks used the whole portfolio of indoor pools. Any sense of how that compares to past years in pre-COVID years?
Oh, our pools have increased. Usage has increased tremendously since COVID.
But pre-COVID?
Mhm.
And so it's higher now than it's ever been?
Correct.
Okay. And what in the pipeline, the facility proposed for RFK, does that include a pool?
The facility proposed for RFK, everything's on the table.
Okay.
So nothing's off the table.
And then the mayor announced plans for an outdoor pool at Carter Barron that would be heated and open all year round. I don't know what's come of that, but is there, we lost the pool at East Potomac Park that was a great amenity. Is there any planning for something like that?
I think the city could benefit from an heated pool outdoor at Carter Barron. I think that would be I'm sure the Ward 4 council member would love that amenity in her ward. I think it would be great for the city.
But is anything happening in terms of pursuing that? I mean, the idea was floated, but is anything happening?
I can get back to you on that.
Okay. Speaking of heated, the leisure pool at Wilson where the heater was out, remind me again, where do we stand?
Let me get back to you on that.
Okay, and the elevator. I mean, Wilson is used a lot, which is great, but it gets beat up. So I'm actually delighted to see. I'd love to see Tacoma take the lead here. And is Tacoma? My sense is usage at Tacoma is going up significantly.
Yes, usage at all of our pools have increased. We would like to believe that it has to do with the fact that our pools are free to district residents, as well as program offerings that we offer to increase, whether it's the Learn to Swim, whether it's the hydro pole class, whether it's the kayaking, whether it's the water polo. So as I think someone testified, when the classes open up, they're so popular, we had to have aquatics programming on its own day. And we take the slots up and they still fill. And the frustration, and I'll be honest, some of the frustration that we've heard from residents, because our classes in Ward 8 may not fill up necessarily. But people necessarily don't want to travel to Ward 8 for a class. They may want to take the class which is by their houses, which of course we understand, but we always encourage anyone, when you look at a class, to look at the entire portfolio.
No, I hear you. I do think also, and I'm sure you do these sorts of things, but for example, we could be aggressively marketing swimming lessons as an out-of-school program after school at Berry Farm, and it's overlapping your out-of-school time work from days back to now. Like,
so we do that.
We do.
That's your junior. We have the Learn to Swim and the Junior Lifeguard Academy, and the purpose of that, I think, an individual testified, when you're in the pool, you're disconnected from your phone. You're not necessarily, you don't have your headphones in, except for the ones that you, water headphones that you introduced me to. But so we believe that we can teach young people to kind of separate from the technology that many of them have become addicted to having in their hands. And so through our learners, we have the after school program. We also have the DC Wave. And so through those three programs, the Junior Lifeguard has been the biggest one that's been a hit for young people. We've seen a lot of athletes who may not have a spring sport or something show interest, and we support that because it keeps them engaged and connected to adults.
So I guess all I'd say, good. I'm glad that you're doing that. And I think we should be very aggressive about trying to present kids, particularly kids in Ward 8 and in various communities around the city, to opportunities of things that they might not otherwise have. And so
I agree.
you're the site to do a lot of that.
I agree.
Hope we can.
I want to come back and answer. The Carter Barron is awaiting transfer of jurisdiction from the National Park Service, and the Wilson Leisure Pool heater has been fixed and is operational.
All right, let's end on that note. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to start with, because now everyone's already like going crazy, like, wait a minute, that means all of our pools are going to be closed. So I want to clarify what sounds like two mutually exclusive reasons for closing the DCPS pools. On one hand, closing these pools over the summer is sort of a matter of policy that has happened for multiple years and may continue to happen for continuous years. But on the other hand, there also could be closures through the lifeguard shortages needed for outdoor pools. Which one is the accurate reason to explain to community members?
So our outdoor pools, there are 3 pools that are impacted. The ones for community usage, that's Roosevelt, that's Dunbar, and that's Ballou. Those 3 pools over the last 3 years have been closed to the public because what we recognize is there are outdoor pools and amenities that are very close and nearby. It also allows the pools to be serviced, and the schools, since they're in the schools, for the schools to be able to operationalize their campus with minimal interruptions.
And if council members wanted these pools to stay open during the summer, what is it that we would need to do? Would we need to provide funding for additional lifeguards, or would we need to help find a way to find another maintenance window for these pools to be maintained say during DCPS spring break or something like that, if we were trying to advocate and keep these pools open for the summer for the future.
So thank you. When we take a pool offline for maintenance, for preventative maintenance, it can be up to 2 weeks. Usually it's like a 2-week window when we're doing those things. So spring break doesn't necessarily give you that, as well as during the school year, you may have swim meets or the swim team and practices happening during the school year. So I think that even based on usage, for these 3 pools in particular, I think it works for everyone. I get the constituents aren't necessarily happy about it. I would encourage them to look at the amenities that are very near. Baloo Oxen Run is right behind the pool. Fairby Hope is, you have 2 pools in walking distance. The same with Roosevelt and also Dunbar. You have Harry Thomas, you have reservoirs, we stated, Turkey Thicket, you have Langdon.
Yeah.
So there are options.
I think the issue is then the options that you all are providing already, we already have testimony. I'm going to get to Tacoma. You can tell a Roosevelt person will then go to Tacoma, but then we already had Tacoma witnesses testify that Tacoma is already overutilized by organizations and only 2 pools are open. And the same reason is staffing issues is keeping Tacoma from having multiple lanes. So if I send Roosevelt people to Tacoma, I'm going to be compounding on Tacoma's already issues that are glaring for Tacoma and their neighbors. And I don't know the organization usage of Turkey Thicket. I know it is up there with Tacoma as far as the utilization of both of those pools. We would basically be adding pressure to an already pressured situation with those pools. So it seemed to me that it would be helpful for these other pools that are smaller to be open and keep those neighbors there so they're not going to these other pools, exhausting the issues that are already at these other pools.
So what happens when we open up other pools, you don't necessarily lose that issue because then those just become more pools to permit. And so,
Bless you.
I'm sorry. um, those just become more pools to permit. And we have a very active community. We have private swim clubs. We have DC Wave that
Right.
so it's not that these issues don't happen. Even our charter schools permit our pools. So that doesn't alleviate one's concerns and then I would also like to say that at Tacoma, I believe that that's an anomaly. That's not consistent where the pools are down or the children's pool is closed daily. That's not consistent. If it's closed due to maintenance or unfortunately, there are things that happen in children's pools where you have to take the pool offline completely. And that's not something that's usually predictable. It just happens in children's pools. And I don't want to gross anyone out, so I hope that we
please
can
don't. I
use
know what you're saying.
inferences from what I'm saying
yeah.
that require us to take the pool off and to reset the pool.
I hear what you're saying. So I think what it is I hear your reasoning, I think, and I disagree, and that's okay.
I think so.
It's okay to, at the point of a hearing to say we reached a disagreement because I just think those pools are near, but most of these people who swim, they're swimming in the early morning. Several testimonies have mentioned they walk, they run there. Seniors use those pools. And so once those pools have closed, they have to stop going to the pool altogether. I think the issue is that, people want walkable. We love toting that as a district. We are a walkable, livable community. We love it. And so people want that. They want to be walkable to their amenities. And I think it's worth us looking at how we can keep these pools open during the summer, but also adequately staffed so that it takes the pressure off our bigger pools. Who are also saying their experience is, I'm getting to Tacoma, I can't use the pool, the lanes are closed. And it's not just Tacoma, we have several witnesses who uploaded testimony, so I don't want to just
No,
harp
I'm
on
saying-
Tacoma, but I want to say that they're saying those are the issues and they want to be close by. So I think we got to come to some type of. And so when I asked for a solution, it was like, obviously I disagree. So I want them open. What is the solution? And I think you're saying to me, there is no solution, because even if you give me more money for lifeguards, even if you give me, even if we find a window with DCPS, that's a 2-week window, that could be the maintenance window, even that isn't it. So there is no sort of solution to the problem that we're identifying today. Is that?
No, that is
accurate?
not, no. There's always a solution, always. What I am saying is based on the resources, based on the usage, what makes the most sense. You are talking to someone who enjoys our pools, and you're supposed to meet me at the pool so that we can exercise. So I'm saying that to any constituent who testified about how important it is, that is my exercise of choice. So I understand more than others might. I am saying if that option is not available, we enjoy the luxury of having another option available. There are always solutions. In a perfect world, magic wand, we will open all of our facilities 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. for public usage. In a perfect world. And so, as this world is not so perfect, when we are faced with the challenges, or because in the past, when we have opened up our facilities all year long, and then to have residents not necessarily use them or minimal usage, then that increases the burden on, you still have to operationalize them. You still have to pay for chemicals. You still have to pay for janitorial services. You still have to pay for security. So it's not just open up the pool. Here's a lifeguard. Here's a pool operator. Here are the chemicals. There are other things that come with that. And so I just want us to be intentional about, and that's what we believe we were doing over the last 3 years.
Yeah. I want to ask about, we have multiple residents and they've been told by DPR staff that the staffing problems resulting in scheduling changes are because DPR fired lifeguards. How many lifeguards has DPR fired since Memorial Day?
So this is a game of telephone. Somebody said that this happened. That doesn't make it true.
So it didn't happen.
This is a game of telephone. I heard from a seasonal staff who heard from another seasonal staff who heard from their cousin that a lifeguard got fired. We don't operate like that. We have a collective bargaining agreement, and all of our staff members are unionized. And so we don't have the luxury to just fire people. So I also hear that there's an opportunity to train, coach, develop, and communicate with our staff, especially as they communicate with the public. And I try to remind staff all the time, when you speak, you are speaking as a government, someone with authority from the government, and so not providing factual information. However, I don't know that that sounds like a game of telephone.
Okay. Can you get back to the committee on if any staff, lifeguards have been fired since Memorial Day? And if so, how many were fired?
Fired or off-boarded?
Semantics.
Fired?
No longer employed, fired. If it's
Okay,
intentional.
the answer, we have not fired anyone since before Memorial. There were no lifeguards fired.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to make clear. There was no mass firing.
There was no lifeguard
after
fired.
Memorial Day.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. And there were people off-boarded, but that was the
seasonals who we had retained, and some of them may have been retained over the course of a year from the previous summer.
Got it. So when is usually seasonal's last day from the summer?
Usually when the pool closes, there's a week of closeout after. So typically in years past, pools close Memorial Day. the week after, because you do all the closeout activities, and they would offboard mid-September, a week or two after.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
got it. Okay, so possibly what they were referring to is the offboarding
Of the seasonal
of the
extended
seasonals
hires.
after Labor Day.
Correct.
That's where this possibly could have came from.
Oh, that's exactly what it is, because
Okay.
we offboarded the 114 that we hired. And in some years, in the previous years, and you and I have discussed this because you have recommended lifeguards from your community that we hired.
Mhm.
And so in past years, we were able to retain some and then use them to backfill lifeguard positions, especially the ones that were really great. And
So were any of the 114 retained for permanent
No.
positions?
no,
And why were none of the 114 retained for permanent positions?
we did not have the funding.
Okay, that's where the funding piece comes in.
Correct.
And so maybe of the 114 that were rolled off at the end of theirs, those are possible hires for
The year before or some,
no, I mean for current now.
Oh,
if
they are. We've
if we
already
need to
identified them.
fill these positions that are coming up, you can go to that same pool and get those
That's the pool
individuals.
we went to. That's
To-
the pool that's in process right now to do their suitability and their background checks and their drug tests.
to
to
become
come back. Correct.
okay. Understood. To come back and work at Dunbar, Roosevelt, and Belive by the end of the month. Okay. The staff call out situation
Yes.
is also concerning as it relates to staffing, and I want to get this right. How do you all consider you got to have space in your staffing for call outs?
Uh-huh.
So help me understand why, one or two people calling out would result in a pool closing. Shouldn't you all have that staffing baked in your model? Like baked in your model of staffing should be the idea that some people may and probably will call out, especially since you do have sort of younger lifeguards during the summer as well. Do you all bake that in? And if not, why aren't you baking that in? Because I could imagine maybe with some, if I had young summer people, I'd be like, all right, maybe on a given day, 2 of them gonna call out. Let me have 5. So that way it's unrealistic for all 5 of them to call out. I mean, if that does happen, you knew something went on the day before.
No room. So we do that. And then we begin to shift, and it also depends on the position, because if a lifeguard is easier to fill at a location than a pool operator.
Okay.
So if the pool operator calls out, then we have to wait until another pool operator comes on site.
Got it.
Right. So we do bake in the lifeguard call out. And I can also tell you where you may have all 5 of your lifeguards show up at your location and your pool operator. However, and you're at Langdon, but the lifeguards at Harry Thomas have not shown up. So I may send 2 of your lifeguards at Langdon to Harry Thomas. And so we're constantly backfilling or ensuring staffing up where we can and where we need to. But again, a pool operator will impact operations differently than a lifeguard. And for the community who doesn't know, the pool operator is responsible for ensuring the back house, the pool operations, the pump room, the chemicals, all the things, making the
Got it.
determination.
Okay.
Yep.
One witness shared the pool is scheduled to open at 6 a.m., but often doesn't open until 7:30 a.m. or 12:30. Do you believe unscheduled changes like this are because of call outs rather than an insufficient number of permanent staff?
Say that again.
Residents are saying that the pool is supposed to open at 6,
Mhm.
not opening until 7:30 or sometimes
Oh,
12. Is that
absolutely.
due to call outs, or is that an insufficient number of permanent staff?
No, I definitely believe that that's due to call outs.
Okay. And about how many aquatic staff call out sort of every day? And
I can give you that number.
okay. And how many lifeguards can call out before pool hours need to be reduced?
again, it depends. Tacoma is a little different, of course, based on size than Joy Evans. So if you have 3 guards at Joy Evans and a pool operator, you can operate the pool with 2 lifeguards and a pool operator. So there would have to be 3 of the 5 that have to call out.
Got it. So, because one of the things I think I mean, when I'm hearing about late openings or pools closing earlier, things of that nature, it's just making me think that the symptom of the problem is that we just don't have a sufficient number of permanent staff in every role. Sort of like we need 2 pool operators, or we need some floaters. We need like pool operator floaters that line up with the average amount of call outs we get from pool operators, right? If on average 3 pool operators call out a week, then we staff up and have 2 pool operator floaters to be able to go to those pools. You know me, I'm trying to solve a problem and diagnose what the symptom is of it. So
that's where our CBA comes in, and that's where we're talking, because again, in other jurisdictions, they don't have, these individuals aren't permanent staff. Even the managers in these other jurisdictions are WAE. So you may be a facility manager in another jurisdiction with no benefits, but you are the manager, or you operate as a shift manager. And so we're looking and trying to work with the union to have this, to see if this is even possible, because it's a model that DC doesn't currently employ.
got it. I wanna get to, and so for pool operators, 1 pool operator can call out, can basically interrupt pool operations.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. I want to turn to the pool user usage. I think we talked about this. I guess I'm curious, sort of from what time period were those hourly user rates? Summer 2024, the utilization chart? The date, where was the data? What was that data period?
What's the appendix?
Got it. Because I think the data in your letter, in the October 31st letter, your public utilization at the 3 pools was lower during the fall and early winter months, which with attendance typically rising again at the end of the winter into spring. And I think you shared the average hourly user was 6 at Dunbar, 5 at Roosevelt, and 1 at Ballou. And so I was trying to get a sense of what time period were those hourly user rates, like where was that from? Summer 2024?
2025, FY 25, from October 1
Okay.
until we closed.
Okay. And how does that compare, I guess, to other indoor pools? Did any pools have a lower average hourly user rate?
No, Ballou is by far the lowest used pool user rate. The Ballou is by far the lowest.
Got it. Okay.
Fairby Hope as well in FY 25 is not a highly used pool, you know.
Right. Got you. Okay. I'm only asking because if we look at the utilization data, then it means, right, then they didn't, I guess the pools aren't based on summer usage, right? And
Correct.
the pools are used more often in summer than winter. So I'm not sure that utilization is sort of the best measure for making that decision.
Well, the previous data, remember, we did used to open these pools in the summer, and that's why that determination was made. I can tell you, Ballou is right behind Oxen Run, and Oxen Run is heavily utilized versus blue. It's just, so these are previous data. And again, even if you use the example for Farabee Hope, which is right up the street from Blue, that's the lowest usage pool in the inventory.
Got it. Should I be encouraging, should we be encouraging users? I guess Adam Kent, who's a Ward 1 resident, in his written testimony shared that as a parent of young kids at Roosevelt, is one of the only pools that he can access at 6 a.m. before getting to school to the start of the day. And he described the pool's opening as a game changer. He also mentioned that at Upshur Pool, the children's pool is frequently closed due to apparent staffing shortage, even though families with small children make up the overwhelming majority of users at that time. So back to, how does DPR track hourly usage at pools? Are the number of users tracked per hour, for
Yes.
example? Okay.
That's
'Cause
part of the head count, when the lifeguards are doing the count and reconciling as well. So we have our electronic system, and then we have our hand count as part of, you know.
Okay, because I was just wondering if the hourly usage calculation include like early morning hours, like 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., or is it an average across all operating hours?
Nope, we count from the entirety, and that's how we make the determination as to whether or not, you know.
Got it. Because it just sounds like basically there's certain high period times.
Correct.
I mean, and maybe we're talking about, we're going to get to a solution. I know we are. Um, if pools are lower during certain hours, maybe during the summer months, I'm not sure if it's a compromise, but if we just keep them open, I guess the staffing, you still got to pay them 40 hours no matter what.
You got to pay them.
Well, I guess seasonal employees, once they become seasonal employees, are they mandatory
40
to
hours.
be 40 hours as well?
Everybody works
40 hours. Okay.
Because when you think about it and the way we staff, it doesn't benefit us to say, okay, you can work 20 hours here. It benefits us to cover the entire shift, because to operate, you're usually looking at 2, and for the 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., you're looking at 3 shifts. So you have a 5:30 to 1 shift, you have your 9 to 5 shift, and then you have your 1 to 9:30 shift. So
Gotcha.
you're looking at 3 different shifts to operate the facility.
Okay, then my solution will work. I'm gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it.
I think the solution is, once we figure out how to hire part-time staff, I think that's the solution, because in that, right, we could essentially, if that's the case, open up a school pool from 5 to 9 p.m., right? Because our MOU with the DCPS does not cover public hours, public use hours. So I think that's a solution. But we, again, because we have collective bargaining agreements, because, and also when you're hiring WAEs, they don't necessarily want to work 20 hours, or they'll take an opportunity to work 40 hours. So I think with our junior lifeguards, we've discussed, for example, you saw Khalil Vahi, he plays football for Dunbar, right? Football season is over. After school, Khalil could work at the pool. So those are ways that we're looking to solve, to do like a plug and play. But we have to make sure that by doing that, the unionized employees do not see this as a threat to upward mobility and opportunities within our organizational structure, because we won't hire FTEs, but will then hire more seasonal staff.
Got it. Okay, I want to move to budgeting. We've talked about staffing and utilization. Did DPR's fiscal year 26 approved budget have enough money to keep every indoor and outdoor pool open throughout the fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay. So the fiscal challenges occurred only after we lost the ability to spend our 25 money.
Correct. That's why we're working to correct it ASAP.
Okay. In the letter you all sent, DPR stated you needed to redirect staff to the new reservoir and Joy Evans because of the hiring freeze due to congressional constraints. Does this mean essentially DPR needed to close 3 indoor pools because it couldn't, as in was not allowed to hire enough summer lifeguards for its outdoor pools? So the indoor pool lifeguards were redirected to the outdoor pools?
So we redirect, say that again?
Basically, does this mean if you all need to redirect staff to Reservoir Park
Mm-hmm.
and Joy Evans aquatic facilities because of as well, was that due to the hiring freeze as well, due to congressional constraints?
So those pools were new pools that came online. So what had happened was the hiring of the FTEs for those locations were caught up in the freeze.
Okay. So that's when the current staff that are on board were utilized for those centers.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. If DPR was allowed to onboard summer lifeguards without the hiring freeze, would all pools have been kept open through fiscal year 25?
We did on board. The waiver was approved, and again, I had been speaking to the mayor's office of budget, and I was always confident that we would have that summer operations would not be impacted, and so we did operationalize all of our pools. They were a priority. The challenge came when the seasonals were off-boarded. And again, we opened up 2 new facilities within the year, Reservoir and Joy Evans with 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. operations, which required 3 shifts. And we weren't able to extend seasonals to support. So we had to make the tough decision based on utilization with the funding that we had to operate our amenities. And unfortunately, the 3 schools with the least amount of utilage were impacted.
Got it. A large source of cost savings from closing pool comes from maintenance, I guess. But Roosevelt, Dunbar, and Ballou still needed to be maintained because DCPS was using them at least since school started. Was DCPS able to use the pools over the summer?
No, they were not.
Okay. About how much money will DPR save from keeping Roosevelt, Dunbar, and Ballou closed from October 1st until when they reopen to the public? And what will that money go towards, if any?
I don't think that there's a there's maybe a cost savings with staffing. But again, we didn't have this, we're staffing now. So I don't think that there's a major cost savings because the pools are still open, to your point, for public usage for school usage, with the exception of Dunbar currently because the boiler is out. But there's still programming happening inside of those facilities.
Got it. I know when talked about pool hours and unplanned schedule changes, we talked about that already. I've heard from residents sort of about that piece. We heard from Matthew Chambers, who I guess has been going to Roosevelt since 2021 until it closed in June when he switched to Tacoma. He documented in his testimony 14 instances over 5 months where Roosevelt Pool did not open on time. And then since swimming at Tacoma, his testimony says he experienced several occasions over the summer when the pool did not open on time because there weren't enough lifeguards, and things haven't gotten better since outdoor pools closed on Labor Day. Matthew said he, has been swimming in district pools for more than 20 years. And his assessment is DPR's management of the pools have been sort of worsening over the last several years. He said he usually sees 30 to 40 people waiting when it opens at 10 a.m. A frequent swimmer who's at Wilson Aquatic Center noted that. So I know that DPR tracks these delay openings and early closures. According to the data provided during the performance oversight hearing, during fiscal year 24 and Q1 of fiscal year 25, there were 410 delays or closures of aquatic facilities. Reasons included snow, holidays, and maintenance issues. However, 49% of those delays and closures were listed as operations administrative. What is operations administrative? Does that include insufficient staffing?
I'm not sure. I have to look at that, but 14 over the course of 5 months, I think that comes out to 2 instances, on an average 2.5 instances a month of being late, while we don't want to open at all late. most of our pools open 6 or 7 days a week. And so you're talking about.
Well, that was just his documented, just Matthew. I mean,
Oh.
he provided that. I was saying Matthew said
Okay.
he's documented over 14 instances over 5 months. I won't say that that's the only documentation, but I think what's happening is just an overall. People are saying this didn't used to be the case, and people have been using Tacoma forever. It's a, one of those places like Turkey Thicket, Tacoma, Fairview Hope. These are places people use. I mean, and it looks like operations administrative is accounting for 49% of those delays. What I'm saying is that I think
You want to know the definition of operation.
right, because I'm thinking operation administrative is staffing calling out. And again, that goes back to the major issue that we're trying to solve for, which is my conclusion from that is that this new wave of not being able to of centers closing early or opening late is because we just have not adequately accounted for staffing needs as it relates to aquatics across the portfolio.
So I would think that operations are separate from administrative. I would believe that the staffing, if it's staffing, would be listed as more administrative, and operations could be that the boiler went out, that there's that would be my thought.
Well, there's one for maintenance issues. So like we took out,
Where are you referring?
we took out snow, holidays. It's on the chart. I'm trying to figure it out. This is what was performance oversight hearing answers
Oh, okay.
for 2025.
Okay, I don't have that in front of me.
Because if I look at data, it could mean call outs could be half of call outs could be and unscheduled delays basically that's accounting for 49% of the reason why we're having delays and closures.
Did DPR provide you this document?
This is the quarter one, the question 145 of our oversight fiscal year 2025.
Yeah, I don't have the chart in front of me,
Okay.
so I don't want to respond blindly.
Okay. You guys will give me the definition of operations administrative and let me know if I've deduced correctly, because snow, holidays, and maintenance I'm accounting for.
Okay.
I am making the guesstimation, and you could say that guesstimation is wrong once you get the information, that if operations administration is strictly attributed to a staff call outs and understaffing, that means 49% of the reasons for these things are insufficient staffing. And so that would get us there, but you're going to get back to me on it once you all have a chance to look at it.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Because the solution to that would be we have to adequately staff. And then the last thing is lanes, because we heard that. I know availability of lanes. Several witnesses testified to 25% of the days he goes swimming, only 2 lanes are available. And because there are only 2 lifeguards, and even when there are enough lifeguards, all available lanes, the public has access to at most 5 or 6 lanes. Cassandra Ogren's testimony mentioned multiple occasions at 6 a.m. there were not enough guards to open Tacoma's leisure pool or available lanes, which means the entire community had to share only 2 lanes, while teams had 4 to 5 lanes reserved every single weekday. I'd like to hear more about how DPR aims to essentially balance the needs of organized sports and public swimmers, which is great. From my understanding, Tacoma is designated as a program facility, which I think the community is now becoming aware of. So what does that mean for Tacoma to be a program facility, and what does that mean for the lane usage for the rest of the community?
Our pools are popular, and through permits, and I know that there are residents who enjoy swimming as exercising, and so we don't necessarily restrict our organized sports, but we do make sure that we save lanes for our public swimmers. We will look at if there's a possibility to maximize additional lanes. So, you know, some people come to the pool, they exercise in the pool, the water walking, and then they may say, we don't need as many lanes. So I know that it becomes a challenge when, you know, but usually the public don't mind sharing two. Sometimes I've seen 3 a lane, but we'll look at that.
Nancy Roth also shared DPR staff told her up to 4 swimmers could swim in the same lane. Does DPR have a policy of how many swimmers can swim in a single lane? And if so, what is that number and how is that policy enforced?
I don't believe that we have a policy on lane swimming. I think it's more to what a swimmer's comfort level is, whether or not you're comfortable sharing a lane. Some swimmers don't want to share a lane, so they will wait until there's no one else in the lane. Others will ask, do you mind? Others will just jump in a lane. So,
and I'm only asking because if is Tacoma considered the only sort of program facility, or are there others who you would consider program facilities?
I think all of our facilities have programming. I think that is something that the public has, but even competitive swimmers, they go as high as 6 in the lane.
Okay.
So
I'm only asking because then that would mean if what we're hearing from community members is that if when there is programming or usage, only 2 lanes are open. And if what Nancy is saying in her testimony is real and it's only, that means only 8 people of the public are allowed to use. If there's 2 lanes open and 4 persons per lane, only essentially during that time period, only 8 regular community members would be able to essentially use the pool while there's programming or organizations utilizing the pool.
not necessarily I don't necessarily agree with that. There's lane etiquette, and individuals use the pools. I'll get back with you on that, but I don't see only 8 members of the public using the pool at one time. When you have an organization, it usually doesn't happen like that. Tacoma does have a lot of people who come to the pool and who use the pool, so.
And then what are your policies as it relates to when aquatics facility is simultaneously used by public and organized sports teams in terms of dividing the space sort of, and how does DPR inform swimmers what areas they can and cannot go to?
So we don't prohibit anyone from coming. I mean, there are still public pools. Usually there's a courtesy that people extend. If DC Wave is on one side of the pool, usually the public does not interact. If DCAC is at the pool, usually the public is courteous of them. It's not, you can't come over here. So the pool is open.
Got it. And regarding the closure of locker rooms, which came up in testimony as well, during swim meets, what is DPR's policy on locker room access for community members when events are occurring? And has this policy changed recently?
So during swim meets, we usually prohibit public use.
Okay.
To the pools, not just necessarily but we send communications out in advance. We send a nixle out about the pool will be closed the weekend of this is the pool, because people can come in for spectator use during a swim meet. And then if you're not a swimmer, we do limit access to the locker room if you're a swimmer, because if you're not swimming, if you're coming to visit for the meet, there are restrooms upstairs, so there's not necessarily a reason to use the locker rooms.
Got it. And would you say, Director, that DPR's current pool portfolio meets the district's public, instructional, and organized athletic aquatics demand?
Oh, no. I say that while we enjoy the luxury of being named the 5th, the city, but the 5th most pools that are accessible to the public, there's a demand. And so, and that's with just all of our sports, competitive sports around the district, leisure activities, being the number 2 or striving to be the number 1 fittest city in America and having many of our amenities free. Our communities have high demands and high expectations on public usage. So while I believe that in our inventory we have enough, as we're constantly opening facilities, rebuilding facilities, the public does not believe that there's enough.
As far as, and as a result of that, I know you heard testimony, is there a way to balance out sort of, I guess what someone was asking for, it seems Tacoma has, it feels like they have that there's a lot of programming there versus it being spread out amongst the other pools in the district. Is that something that can be done, sort of at least spreading out programming over to multiple pools versus just
So we do.
Tacoma being home to so much programming?
That's why I was saying that that's a perception, but there's DC Wave is at Berry Farm, DCAC is at Turkey Thicket. We do there's clubs at Deanwood. As I stated, water polo started at Deanwood. So we do spread programming out across the city. And actually what's happening is many of our residents visit aquatics facilities, not just in their neighborhood, but across the city. If you go to Berry Farms in the morning, you may see residents from Ward 3 doing lap lanes at Berry Farms because it's easier to get a lane at Berry Farms than it is at Wilson.
Got it.
And so
I guess your answer to other aquatic centers that are more program focused is that every aquatic center is program focused.
Correct.
There's not sort of there's not one facility that's more program focused than the other.
I believe the larger facilities, you may have more because it's just a larger facility that can accommodate more programs. It doesn't mean that this is a program facility and this one is not.
Got it. Okay. Is there a minimum number of lanes that must remain available for walk-in public use? Do you have a policy regarding that?
No, we do not, but we always I think we don't have a policy, but we have a practice of always keeping lanes open to the public.
Okay. I wanted to ask about, one thing that came up was, training.
Mhm.
And I think some witnesses just wanted to make sure, how are you managing and training lifeguards to ensure that you're prohibiting phone use on duty, or and some of the things we heard from a constituent who I want to follow up with about sort of making sure that the staff that is our trainers are exhibiting the best behaviors. What is your training look like, but also what does your internal management system look like to ensure that while they're on duty and working?
So there's our lifeguards are required to attend a monthly in-service training. That's once a month. There's a strict policy that prohibits phone usage while in the chair. Lifeguards cannot even bring their phones to the chair. So if you ever see a lifeguard with a phone on their person in the chair, that is a strict violation.
Got it.
We also have designated phone use areas. So many of our lifeguards do not even take their phones outside of the lifeguard office, or they'll walk out.
Right. That's what I would assume. I thought that was strange when it was testified to, because I don't know how you would have it. That's what I've seen in practice when I've gone.
I want to go back to something you asked about programming, just to give you a quick one. So DC Wave is at Rumsey, Turkey Thicket, and Tacoma.
Okay.
Junior Wave is at Wilson, Tacoma, Turkey Thicket, Deanwood, Berry Farms, Rumsey, Marie Reed. So we are definitely spreading out, and I wanted to get that on the record as to all of the locations where we are trying to encourage our young people who may not even swim competitively to begin to think about the benefits of it.
Yeah. And I was concerned about the number of the lack of utilization at Baloo, because we need to be teaching our Black babies how to swim, and making that a part of what we do as swimming is an equity issue as well, and a safety and health issue overall. What are we doing to get people to utilizing Baloo and learning to swim? Do we have programming that you can bring your children can learn how to swim particularly in the locations where we're seeing those loader utilizations, and we actually need to be teaching them how to swim, and they may not have access to goldfish swimming, which is $75 a session.
So
Yes, I know about
so we
by experience.
So DPR, believe it or not, well, I know you believe it, because we speak in the infirmity and you know the greatness of the amenities in your city. We are above the national average in African Americans in the pools and swimming. And as you know, historically, um, even there's a drop off in DC Wave once our young African American females begin to the hair, they can be a DC waiver for since 5, but then when they get to middle school, now it's a hair issue and I'm just not getting in the pool. And so we're trying to overcome and break those stereotypes, to introduce them. That's why kayaking is important. So it's not necessarily getting you completely immersed, but we can get you in the water and get you comfortable with being in the water and using water as an exercise. The same thing with water polo. We recognize that, and that's something that we're trying to break the barrier on.
I want to note we've been joined by our Ward 5 colleague, Councilmember Zachary Parker.
Thank you, Chairperson Lewis George. Good to see you, Director. I know I'm just jumping in, so some of my questions may have already been covered. I'm looking at this appendix which covers counts for pool attendance, I'm assuming. And I see at the bottom of the list, Fairview Hope, Ballou, Roosevelt, Dunbar. Those are some of the pools slated to be reopened, or there was a question. There seems to be some ambiguity. Can you just restate the reasons for those pools being closed? And I know your testimony said you're not ready to give a date, but I'm going to ask again, is there a date when we could expect those pools to be open?
So council member, we did have the opportunity, and I will restate, I did in the back and forth with Councilmember Lewis George, we have identified staff members to support with the reopening of those pools. They're currently in the background check and the suitability process. They were off-boarded. We had seasonals that were off-boarded. In the past years, we have kept our seasonals on to help sustain operations. And so due to the budgetary constraints, we had to offboard the seasonals who normally would support. And we've identified them, they're coming back. However, the challenge in your ward currently is that the boiler is down at Dunbar Pool. And so we're working with DGS to get that open and operationalized. The next EOD date, which is employee onboarding date for DCHR, is November 25th. We're confident that we can get some employees on by that date. And then the one after that is December 7th. And so we're looking to mitigate those closures through staffing.
And do you have a sense of timeline for the boiler repair?
No, when I spoke with DGS, we may have to go through the waiver process with GBAC, and so I'm just trying to figure it out.
You may have to go through the waiver process. Okay. Please keep me posted if there's anything we can do. You heard testimony today, and I continue to hear stories from neighbors about how they rely on this pool. I'm looking at the numbers, and it does seem like Dunbar year in total for fiscal year 25 had a little over 8,000 people visit that pool, which I think is a significant number. It doesn't rival 118,000, but that's still a significant number. So I take all that to mean that the reason for the pool closure was a lack of coverage for the pools, or it was a mixture of financial pressures trying to save money and offboarding those employees who were seasonal.
So that 8,000 number also includes students. And that also may not be unique visitors. It could be the daily usage, the daily individual. So when you see 8,000, it's not 8,000 unique visitors.
I
Just
got it.
to give you that for context. And I'm trying to find it so that I can speak to it. Can you repeat your question for me, please?
It was, I'm just trying to nail down the reason for the closures. So was it because of cost savings?
It was a
Well-
couple things, right? It was a couple things. So during our we opened 2 additional pools. We opened Joy Evans in December of 24. We also opened Reservoir. And so while opening up 2 additional facilities require lifeguards, of course. And so we staff for those lifeguards. We, during the course of the year, in the congressional cuts, we had to submit waivers to hire for our pool operations. For any of our positions, they required a waiver. And so what the most important was ensuring that we had summer operations. And so we fully staffed to support summer operations. At the conclusion of summer, we usually in the past have held over seasonals that could support with whatever operations indoor. And so this year we did not extend any of our seasonals. So where you onboard or you open 2 new amenities, and 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. amenities in your inventory, and then it becomes not extending the seasonal. So you have to look at the entire inventory and what makes the most sense to sustain operations. What is the most utilized facilities in our inventory, and how can we maximize operations while still giving the public options? And so the decision was made to close the school pools, which had the least amount of hours that were open, because again, a 6 a.m. versus 9 p.m. operation, or operation that's closed for 8 hours during the day, it's also hard to kind of staff when you're talking about breaking up the shifts. It's hard if you're not staffing, when you're not working outside of those, the window from 5:30 a.m. to 1 p.m., 8 to 5, and then a 1:30 to 9 p.m. shift. So to operate our pools, there are 3 shifts that happen during the course of the day with the hours. It's easier to make adjustments to a facility that doesn't operate that way. Does that make sense?
Yes. So I'm repeating back what I'm hearing. So the 2 new pools came on. You have a group of lifeguards and assets that, you have to make sure it covers all of your pools. And the decision was made to cut back on service for the least visited pools.
Correct.
So what was the decision point about reversing course and saying, all right, we will open these pools?
So we always intended to open October 1. That was always the case. That was our goal. However, because they were off-boarded, completely separated, we had to go back through the hiring process, which requires getting a funding certification, which requires suitability, which requires treating it as a new hire. So our intent, and in a perfect world, had we not off-boarded, we would have been able to just roll over for the continuity of services. But because there was an offboarding, we had to go back through the process all over again.
Understood. So it was always intended to open back up. And now you're just going through the rehiring phase because
Correct.
you had offboarded those people.
And I think that this year was like a perfect storm. So it's like an anomaly because you had the congressional budget shortfalls. You had we had to make the adjustments midstream. We weren't able to use the pool of extra resources that we the luxury of using in the past. And so I just think that this year was like the perfect storm. And because of the cuts, the congressional cuts, I think, every agency had to take a look at how do you downsize? How do you minimize, what can you give up? We made the tough decision because we knew that there were amenities nearby. So closing a Baloo when you have a Fairby Hope and a Berry Farm right down the street, closing a Dunbar when you have a reservoir, a Turkey Thicket, that are really nearby, and the same thing for Roosevelt. So it was a very difficult decision. And I will also say, and I will own, and I apologized for what may feel to the community as a lack of transparency. That's not the goal. I hear that there's an opportunity for us to regain trust through better and systematic communication, and that's what we will do.
Yep. No, I really appreciate that. I will say again, as much as you can share information with our offices, I think we can be a frontline defense. But when we don't know, we're with neighbors like, I don't know, let's ask DPR. Going back to the boiler, why would a waiver be needed for the boiler at Dunbar? It is my understanding like these types of repairs are routine.
I'm getting clarification from DGS.
Okay.
I spoke to someone in DGS yesterday, and we're all trying to figure it out, trying to figure out how to resolve it. That conversation was in passing, and I don't want to give misinformation.
So it sounds like Baloo and Roosevelt will open in short order once those people are onboarded, whether that be in November or December. Dunbar will open whenever that boiler is repaired.
That's our plan, correct?
Okay, and then that makes that timeline for that even more important. And I can imagine they were saying, all right, is that going to be December, January, March, June for that boiler?
I understand.
I understand.
I definitely understand.
And then on the communication front, and I'm glad you covered it. I was going to come there next. What is the routine communication channels for DPR? Not just about pools, but like getting information out. I know you do your ward meetings and you share a lot of updates, but can you describe how you disseminate information to the public about events or pool closures, rec maintenance, repairs, et cetera?
So we use emails. We also use Nixle. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And it gives you real-time alerts when the pools are closed. We also have a splash that we update in real time to provide information on pool closures. And we usually communicate with our ANC, through our Office of External Affairs.
Okay.
As well as council.
And who owns all of that? Like the Nixle and like, is there a staff person that is responsible for disseminating information?
I'm responsible.
Well, it can't be you, Director.
I mean, but all
I know everything stops with you, but
Yeah.
hopefully it's not you pushing send on a notification.
I am it. And if
Okay.
if we failed, then if I failed, then I can own that.
And I wasn't asking to throw somebody under the bus, but I was going to suggest that if there could be a cadence of communication, at least with ward-based members, to say, even if it were weekly, here's what's happening in Ward 5 this week that neighbors should know. Like I have a weekly newsletter. I know Councilmember Lewis George does. I think some
started
of
it.
that will, say it again. I think some of that could alleviate some of the community angst, and we want to be of support. So,
And I
yeah.
received that, and
Yeah.
I believe that as well. And so that's why I'm saying I own it, because I acknowledge that there's an opportunity to strengthen how we communicate with our stakeholders, with our ANCs, and with the council, especially on things that impact, I call my chair, she knows, I call her all the time and say, hey, FYI, I know you're feeding the baby, but I need you to know that this is a, you know, so I try to keep you guys updated. I can be a little, we will be more
Yeah.
intentional and
And
making
just
sure
some
it trickles
example,
down.
I know DC Water has started sending out these blanket emails, like here are the water shutoffs in your ward. DDOT, they send out their notices of hearings or whenever they're making changes. Just lifting those up, that when we get that as an office, it allows us to share information and take action. Are there plans to onboard new pool assets to DPR in this fiscal year?
In this fiscal year, no. No. Oh, yes, Rosedale.
Okay.
Rosedale is being redone, and hopefully we'll be able to open Rosedale in FY26.
So ahead of that, should we anticipate a similar pressure that, all right, now we have a new pool, we have a finite amount of lifeguards, somebody's gonna have to close?
No, Rosedale's an outdoor pool, and and again, we start hiring for our summer hires, and I'll make sure you all get this information in December. We start identifying the talent and hiring in December. I will say that we identify the candidates, they're in the pipeline, and we work with DCHR to get them cleared to start. On the date. Now, the thing about it, and again, I have to, in the midst of, that's why I said the mayor and the executive made sure that our summer operations weren't impacted, because you were there at Jump In. And so
And I actually jumped in.
and you actually jumped in.
Yes.
And our summer operations, we had all of our lifeguards for our summer operations, and we were happy about that. So there was no impact to the community for summer in real time. The impact came after, when we had to offboard staffing who normally would have stayed on to support.
And I know at that jump in event, there were a number of what I considered like young lifeguards or teen lifeguards.
Goldies.
Goldies. What is the pipeline there from them being Goldies to serving as full-time lifeguards?
That's a great question. So our junior lifeguard program was our first year, their first year lifeguards. They went through the junior lifeguard program in the fall. They received their certifications, and we were able to hire them. And that's a big deal, because you're talking about a 16-year-old who's hired as a DC government employee, even if it's temporary, but for $22 an hour. That's a big deal. And so we've in the seasonals that we've identified to come back to staff some of these 3 pools, we have identified some of the Goldies. And of course, your second year, you get a red shirt. So we believe that this is a true pipeline to be able to work every summer and year round, and even when you come home from college, and then potentially employed as a full-time lifeguard after college until, or if that's the path that you choose to make. I believe that we've identified that.
Okay. One more question on Dunbar's pool, and then I have one more other question. Can you commit to providing at least a monthly update so that we're just not in the dark in perpetuity? Like maybe it's going to be this week. So
Commit. We should be meeting. I thought we had talked about meeting monthly anyway.
okay.
So
I would love that.
yeah, if we can get back on schedule, I commit to meeting with you monthly to give you an update of all the projects in your ward.
In particular, the Dunbar pool, knowing that that's slated for repair, that would be helpful so we can push those updates to neighbors. While I have you, and this isn't pool related, but I am aware that DPR is pivoting to utilizing a combined design build team versus 2 separate teams, one for design and one for build. You all recently had a meeting with the Ward 5 community about the Cremel building. And I think the headline from our perspective, it didn't go well, in part because neighbors were kind of blindsided with information that, oh, what you thought was going to exist here is actually going to change. Whether valid or not, people felt like blindsided by the information. Can you provide an update there? But also, how is this pivot going to impact pool access, rec access, other amenities at Cromell and other new projects that are coming online, if that makes sense?
We believe that the design build will help us improve how we're supported. Oftentimes, when you have them separate and apart, a designer can build to, a designer will design to specifications that are outside of the cost. And then there's a change order and a change order and a delay in the project because why do you need to use this? But if this was in the design, and then you may have to go back. So DGS, and we're in agreement with this, believes that this new process will allow for a continuity, because if you design it and you're building it, you're not going to say to use to put this wood plank up, you need a gold screw that only comes from California. You know that you have to build it, so you're going to put specs in that make the most sense, and that's attainable. So we're excited about that. I had not heard at that meeting. I hadn't heard that. This is the first time hearing that there was some
Yeah, I heard that.
kerfuffle at the meeting.
And it was primarily because of the shift in scope, the message to the community was you're not going to have as much recreational space as previously promised. We are going to have to update the scope of the project. And I still think there's room to smooth things over. I think that's both a consequence of communication, but also I'm wondering if you all are having to revisit all of your designs that are coming on board, like new projects, because of this pivot, or is that just a one-off thing for Cromell?
Again, this is the first I'm hearing, but I don't want to focus. What I do want to focus on is the new model will help us stay on budget, will help us, I believe, deliver on time. And I think it will be better for all the residents on all of our projects. I will do some due diligence and get back to you on Cromell specifically,
Okay.
because I wasn't aware of this. So
Yeah.
I'll,
If I recall correctly, it's the basketball court. I
Okay.
think the community feels like they're losing something that was once promised.
okay.
Again, I think what you're just explaining sounds reasonable
Uh-huh.
in terms of saving money, making sure projects are on time. But I'm also thinking about Harry Thomas Rec and any other number of projects. Is this going to be a recurring theme where we have to update the scope in addition to this pivot? So that was the spirit behind the question.
I appreciate that.
And
You're out of time.
okay, yeah, I'll end there. But thank you for your time, and I look forward to jumping back into our monthly meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good to see you.
Okay, Director, we're going to speed round this. Hopefully the answer to everything is going to be yes, so that'd be great. Will DPR post information on late openings or early closures on the website?
Yes.
Multiple residents testified earlier about asking DPR to make publicly available a schedule that shows not just when a pool is open, but what laps and areas are reserved for teams and lessons and open to public. I imagine that's a little bit more complicated.
It is.
But you all might have some version of this for permitting and scheduling that you can base this off. Will DPR work to make these type of schedules placed online for the future?
DPR will look at how we could potentially solve for this.
Great. And it's already the case that NIXL alerts is the primary way in which residents are continuing to be notified whether a pool will remain open to the public during organized programming, and whether there would be areas for public use.
Mhm.
Okay. And can DPR commit to sending out NIXL alerts and postings on its website every time a pool is closed?
Absolutely.
Public access is limited during the normal hours of operation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's standard.
You've mentioned DPR's real-time status page for summer outdoor pools and splash pads. I'd like to see one for indoor pools as well.
Agreed.
Great. So if that's something DPR could work to accomplishing as a resource, that would
That's
be
a
great.
yes.
Great.
So you
Wonderful.
got 3 yeses.
Got it. I do have to bring up this one issue. We had a senior who was very upset, gave me a call, and I promised I would mention this to you. They went to go check in, him and his wife, who are both seniors, went to go check in and to a pool, I believe it was Tacoma, and they were denied entry after presenting their real ID because the system showed no email address on file. Yeah. And they were told they needed to create new accounts on the spot, which required them to use a smartphone, and neither one of them, they were seniors, had smartphones, or knew how to use a smartphone. They literally had one flip phone before the couple. I just want to make sure, we can talk about it offline. I just want to make sure the a possession of having a valid real ID is enough to establish residency and be granted access to a DPR facility.
Absolutely. I certainly hope that this was a one-off.
Okay.
And because it's certainly not the norm, but this is something that we will address.
Okay.
In our in-service. If this was there, please send me the email.
I will. I absolutely will. And you could reach out to them. It was a very nice older senior couple who were just a little rattled and upset because they were like, we have our IDs and we don't have a smartphone. So,
and the staff at Tacoma are usually really, they help
that's right,
create accounts.
But
can I interrupt you really quickly?
Yep.
I have an answer for you.
You got an answer?
The heater, if it is determined that the heater cannot be fixed or replaced with the gas boiler, that it's a gas boiler, so we have to look at the Climate Commitment Act.
I see.
So I'll give you follow-up, but that's the piece where.
Okay.
Tacoma locker room renovations, which we've been waiting for a very long time, and I don't know, somehow it ended up the CFO had to weigh in on a renovation to a locker room. Stunning here. What when has DPR been notified when they will begin Tacoma renovation, locker room renovations?
It's slated to begin in January.
Okay. And will that mean the pool will be closed, or will it just be the locker room that is closed?
We'll have to take it offline. The locker room will be offline.
But the pool won't be offline.
The locker room will be offline. We'll have to look at it. Let us look at how we can solve for this.
If not, the biggest thing is communicate with a capital C so that we.
Yeah, because there's I don't foresee a situation where you have a pool where you can use, but you don't have a locker room to change. So, and especially in January where it's going to be cold and people leaving the facility in wet clothes. So we will make sure we communicate.
Residents are reaching out about when they report maintenance issues, either utilizing a 2 DPR or utilizing for the outdoor 12311. What happens is then DGS is telling them they never received requests to create a work order. And so there's some type of imbalance. Does DPR staff have at each facility have access to have Salesforce access?
Correct.
Okay. So if a work order is put in, they can put work orders in and see sort of where the work order is in process.
Correct.
Okay. Last question. Walter Reed came up, so I just want to address that. Is there have you seen DGS's feasibility study for a pool at this location? Have you gotten any updates regarding whether DGS can find a way to create a pool at this location?
I think what was communicated regarding the steam tunnels holds true. And I have not received an update past that, but I will follow up with DGS to see.
Okay. making sure I covered everything that I need.
And per DOH regulations, we have to have showers at the site in order to operate a pool. So we will make sure that we send ample notice to the public.
Got it. We received emails and heard from the councilmember for Ward 8 around Congress Heights. What's the current status of Congress Heights pool?
Can you repeat your question, please?
What is the current status of Congress Heights pool?
So the Congress Heights construction currently does not include a pool. The many community meetings that we attended, the community really wanted a splash pad. There's also pools at Fairby Hope, Ballou, and Berry Farm. And I think we just spoke about the underutilization. The data indicates that there's not a lot of residents who are using the pools in that regard. And so what the community wanted, there's a community with a lot of young children who indicated that they preferred a splash pad. There also are some implications from the net zero exemption or the understanding that, and that was communicated in a meeting, in a briefing with the council member. This change may have taken place over a year ago. I believe he was a committee chair at the time, but I'll go back and follow up with him directly.
Okay. So the design now currently includes splash pads.
Correct.
Just not a pool.
Correct.
Okay. So so the status is it is a splash pad location.
Correct.
It's designed to be in the future a splash pad location.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. I think that's it on, so I'm not going to cover this. Last cleanup activity. I still haven't gotten my after action report for Jasmine Jefferson that I requested DPR provide the after action report. And so is DPR planning on ever providing the action report for Jasmine Jefferson?
Let me look into that.
Okay. Other than that, the last two questions I have are non-pool, but do you all have a date for when you expect to reopen Fort DuPont? Because we've received a lot of emails about that.
I am so excited about Fort DuPont Ice Arena. And I think it's going to be yeah, I'm so excited. You'll be the first.
In conclusion, you do not have a current date for the reopening.
You, council member, will be as the committee chair of facilities, recreation, and all the great things that this committee is. You will be the first to know.
The one worry I have is the fiscal year 26 budget for DGS and DPR did not account for operating the Fort DuPont Ice Arena. So we're going to be in a pickle, me and all of us in this pickle. How much will DPR spend in fiscal year 26 to operate the facility? And given the costs we're not budgeted for, where is DPR going to take these funds from? And if you don't have an answer now, we got to have an answer, because it's going to come up as a budgeting issue for us eventually, or maybe sooner than we would like.
So I definitely would like an opportunity to speak with you about this brand new asset that DPR and the community and the committee will enjoy. I also want to go back. ORM has not officially closed out the Jasmine Jefferson case, and so it's still open, and I think that's the reason you haven't gotten an after action report. So I just wanted to indicate that on the record. Yeah.
Okay.
But I will say, in light of the Jasmine Jefferson situation, what we have done is communicate to all of our lifeguards the importance of health and wellness. And we've retrained them on the process of FMLA, as well as reasonable accommodations. And so, without saying a lot, because the positions as a lifeguard require a certain physical aspect that is just required with the job, we've encouraged our lifeguards, because of course it's all self-reporting
That's right.
on health, but we've trained them on how to discreetly, so that they don't feel like they have to disclose anything personal with their health, but to make sure that everybody is safe. So we have
Okay.
implemented that.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I think it's just a part of the committee. This is something we started the committee with, and we can't close out our work without receiving that report and making sure that we've done our due diligence oversight wise to close that gap. So the sooner the ORM can finish, the better we can sort of close out and know that the recommendations that they report are recommendations you all are currently and are already implementing as well. With that, I think we've covered the major themes that this roundtable was set to do, which is addressing overall chronic issues with pools, and understanding of staffing, which we will, I guess, unpack a little more during oversight and really have to account for during budget, as far as what does adequate staffing for the aquatics department for DPR truly mean, especially as your footprint is expanding. And especially as everybody wants DPR to do also every other agency job in the city outside of pools and aquatics. You didn't say that, I said that. And so we just have to account for that as your agency. Whenever you are given more responsibilities, you have to be given more funds. And if you aren't given more funds, that impacts the current capacity of the agency and the current things the agency does. And so keeping that in mind, it's why defining adequate staffing is so important, because we have to use that to defend sort of the budget that is necessary for the agency if you are going to be, I'm not going to name other agencies, do other agencies work and mission in addition to your mission as an agency is what I will say. I appreciate your candidness and you're willing to apologize to constituents as a director and a leader, to say to them there have been some communication mishaps, and DPR will write those communications and look internal and figure out how to make those communications better. I appreciate that, and I hope we see that almost immediately, because as you heard from the witnesses, they go every morning, including this morning. They went to Tacoma at 6 a.m. and then showed up at this hearing. So that improvement in communication, that understanding the standard gap, and then let's try to figure out what that balance looks like between community members, lanes, and in addition to organizations' use of the space. It's a delicate balance that as you permit for other things like our baseball leagues and our soccer leagues and everything else. What we're hearing from the community is we want to see more balance there. And so that same equity approach that we're using across the fields and DPR and other areas, some focus and attention to that for the pools would be greatly appreciated as well. Awesome. Okay, with that, that will conclude the hearing. Reminder that to the public that you can still upload your written testimony. And I want to note we got a lot of uploaded testimony versus people here. So I know the agency is going to take the time to read through that testimony as well, as it'll be a part of the official record. If you did not get to upload your testimony, please do so by December 5th at 5 p.m., which is when December 4th. 5 p.m., which is when the record closes. I want to thank the director and her staff. I want to thank all our public witnesses who testified today, and the 40 district residents who have already submitted written testimony, as well as the ANC commissioners for their testimony and their service to district. This concludes today's Oversight Roundtable on DPR's pools, closures, and staffing. And the time is now 2:47 p.m. and this hearing is adjourned.